What is happening out there, rotoscouts baseball fans? Welcome to a Friday show, gang. Yes, we're starting at 2:30. I realized, I just found out when I opened the studio little thing here on the website that I accidentally scheduled it for 3 o'clock. But we need to get started at 2:30 today. So we're live right now. People will figure that out, I'm sure, as we go. Let me remind everybody in the chat. Starting now, accidentally had it slotted at 3. Anyway, big old baseball slate to talk about tonight. So we're going to get into this one a little bit earlier than usual and hopefully go through everything. It's a really interesting 12-gamer on both sites. A lot of pitching to work with today. So it should be a good slate to break down. Hopefully people do realize that the show is on as we go through. Maybe I should have just changed the schedule. I don't know. I just hit the go live button. I figured, what the hell? People will figure it out. Cujo was here. That said happy TGIF. Not sure if he's still here. But anyway, people will spot it. Otherwise, they'll catch up. Either way, whenever you're listening to this, hit the like button. Subscribe to the channel as we get rolling. And we will talk through this 12-game slate. Again, a lot to work with on the pitching board today. It's a pretty clear cut line. Somewhere around like there, just right in the middle of the board. You know, maybe it's a little further down, but there's believable enough options down through some of these cheap guys that it wouldn't completely stun anybody if Logan Allen had an okay enough start for the money, or Dean Kramer against the Athletics at 6,800, JP Sears on the other side of that game for 63. It's a lot to work with. So it's a deep, interesting slate with 12 games available. A couple people look like they're working their way into the room. Welcome, welcome. Getting into the Vegas board a little bit. Start of a good series between the Red Sox and the Yankees in the Bronx. Sox checking in at a 3.82 implied total. That's Walker Buehler on the hill for them. Will Warren on the mound for the Yankees. Outside of a bit of a meltdown against the Dodgers, he'd been pitching very, very well, finding his strikeout stuff in recent games. It'll be interesting to see how he bounces back from that one. Had a rough outing, gave up 7 earned runs, only lasted an inning and a third out in Los Angeles. But back home in the Bronx, we'll see what happens. 5.29 implied total for the Yanks, one of the top teams on the board going up against Walker Buehler. There is a little bit of weather in this area. Roth has it as yellow, but passing showers should be fine. A lot of weather to talk about throughout the slate, but that's one of the noteworthy spots. The Astros at the Guardians. 4.48 implied total there on the Astros side. They're facing Logan Allen, and then it's Colton Gordon on the mound for Houston. I feel like it's gettable pitchers and good offenses or good enough offenses on either side. So I think we're probably leaning bats there. But again, both of those pitchers wouldn't be entirely unbelievable to see them succeed at cheap prices. So maybe a little bit four cornersy, but definitely leaning bats. 4.11 implied total on the Guardian side. Cubbies at the Tigers. Low 3.11 implied total for the Cubs, one of the best offenses in baseball this season because they're facing Tarek Skubal, arguably the best pitcher in baseball right now. So tough spot for Cubs bats. They're kind of in the middle of the board, lower end than they normally would be, but they are still picking up a little bit projection-wise, even with Skubal on the hill. Those are some very, very good bats, so some of that's going to carry through. They're not a high-end option today, but they're potentially, when we talk about contrarian choices, at least you're getting one of the best teams. Now, you're doing it against one of the very best pitchers in baseball again, but there are arguments to be made for considering maybe a few contrarian shares, especially because Skubal will have his ownership. On the other side, 3.99 implied total on the Tigers side. They're facing Ben Brown, who is a serviceable righty with some pretty decent strikeout stuff. Also pretty prone to giving up big games and runs so far. Still finding his form at this level. But an interesting enough pitcher. Last time he was fantastic. 6 innings against the Reds. 1 hitter, no runs, 9 strikeouts and a walk. Tremendous start. Royals and the White Sox. Oh, my bad. I skipped over the Diamondbacks. I had it on this. I was like, how did E-Rod get in the way? We've got the Diamondbacks and Reds. That ballpark definitely going to inflate some offense. One of the best run-scoring teams in the Diamondbacks. 4.89 implied total. They're going up against Nick Lodolo, who can be good, but can also be gettable. And then on the other side, it's Erod in his return to the mound. First start since the 14th. Definitely upside on both sides of that one for offense, but it wouldn't completely stun if either of those pitchers had a successful day. More likely on the Lodolo side, I would think, despite facing the better of those two teams. Now the Royals and the White Sox. That's Davis Martin for the White Sox, pushing a decent enough total at 4.37 toward the Royals. Just a 3.72 on the White Sox side. Seth Lugo on the mound for the Royals. He had a rough one last time out, just 3 1/3, 3 strikeouts, 2 walks, a pair of home runs, 4 earned runs over 5 hits. That was against Detroit. The White Sox, notably not the Detroit Tigers this year. The Padres and the Brewers, an 8.5 run total in that game. Randy Vasquez on the mound for the Pods. Chad Patrick going for the Brewers. I think we're leaning more offense in that one as well. We can always consider at least some of the top end of the Pods. It's just a couple stars up there. And then the pretty healthy total for the Brewers is definitely something I think we can attack with Chad Patrick there and maybe get a little aggressive about. Paxton Schultz is starting the game for the Blue Jays. I would expect multiple innings out of him, but no more than probably 3. And then it's Eric Lauer scheduled in bulk relief, and Schultz might just be an inning and a third like he went last time. 2 2/3 the outing before that, 3 innings the outing before that. So who knows? But we do have Eric Lauer as the scheduled bulk reliever. Either way, looks like a gettable enough spot with Twins bats coming in the mid-4th, 4.61 implied total for them. And then the Blue Jays are facing Bailey Ober, who can be very up and down himself. He's been pretty good throughout the season so far, mid as far as the strikeout results go. But a playable starter, but also a spot where their low strikeout bats will play negative for him. And there are a few bats to like up at the top of that lineup. So maybe a lower owned, interesting enough stack with a 4.0 implied total, 4.01. Dodgers with Justin Robleski facing the Cards with Sonny Gray on the mound. Sonny's got the Dodgers down at just 4.15. That's about as low as you can squash that offense most days. He's an effective enough righty. 10 strikeouts in 2 of his last 3 appearances. The middle one, he gave up 3 earned runs, struck out 5, 9 hits allowed to the Diamondbacks, but still a decent enough start against the D-backs. So Sonny's got the upside to beat the Dodgers, but it's obviously a very high danger spot on a pretty deep pitching slate. So I don't know how much we really need to tangle with that. And then Cards bats, another decent enough total, 4.44 implied total for them going up against Robleski. Seems like a gettable spot. Mets at the Rockies seems pretty obvious. 6.5 runs leading the slate by far. Monster spot for them against Antonio Senzatella. And then it's Kodai Senga on the mound for the Mets. Definitely worth considering, even in Coors Field. 4.10 implied total is not nothing, but that Rockies team is terrible. Should push some strikeouts in his direction, and I don't really see him going out there and really having too much issues. So like the upside for that spot, and hopefully you get him maybe a little lower owned than he would be in like versus this team in a home game where he'd be the most popular pitcher on the slate. The Mariners at the Angels, another very high total here, 9.5 runs, 5 on the Mariners side. They're going up against Kyle Hendricks, been gettable for years. And then the Angels facing Bryce Miller, who has just not been himself so far this year. We saw him hit the injured list with a bit of an arm issue and came back fairly quickly. Made a 4-inning start his last time out, 3 earned runs, 2 strikeouts. By all accounts, the stuff did look pretty good and looked like his form was better, but still shaky as far as the depth has been this year, as far as the just the form overall has been. So difficult spot there, 4.55 implied total. I'm kind of leaning bats on both sides of that one. Orioles and the A's in that ballpark that's been playing up offense, 5.58 implied total for the Orioles, 5.06 for the Athletics. That one's Dean Kramer against JP Sears. Again, very, very gettable pitchers on either side of that game, but both guys not pitchers that we haven't seen succeed in the past. We have seen decent major league starts out of both these guys. For Dean Kramer, he had one last time out. It was against the White Sox, but he went 6, 1 earned run, 6 hits, 7 strikeouts, 2 walks. That's an effective day for a guy who's going to be as cheap as him. And then Sears, last time out, was just 2 earned runs on 7 hits over 5 at Toronto. He only struck out 3. He had a pretty good 7 strikeout game at Texas, 5 2/3, and 1 run allowed on 5 hits, 7 Ks, no walks. He's capable of spiking those days. He had 3 7 strikeout games this year. So not completely dead, but that ballpark works against everybody. Those are two good lineups, even with some underperformance. Those are good teams. Braves and the Giants to round things out. Duel of two young, very talented pitchers. Spencer Schwellenbach going up against Hayden Birdsong. Schwelly fully stretched out 7 innings, 6 and a third. So he's pitched into the 7th in his last 4. Tremendous option. Struck out 11 in each of his last 2. Really gotten it going up against the Giants lineup that has plenty of strikeouts for him. And then Birdsong went 5 and a third in his last one. So I'm expecting the ability to book 6 innings this time around if all goes well against the hard-hitting Braves. You can see what Vegas thinks of the pitching in that one. The ballpark also helped pitching. 7.5 run total. 401 implied on the Brave side. 357 on the Giants. Definitely solid source of late night hammer pitching, and don't sleep on Hayden Birdsong in that game. Good as the Braves are, and I'll have some Braves on the other side of it. I like Hayden Birdsong quite a bit. Cubs, what's going on, buddy? Good to see you. Just a handful of people have realized that we've gone live because I completely screwed up the timing, but that's okay. It just gives us a little leg up on the time of this show and the time at which we'll be able to jump off this show. But drop your questions into the chat. Say hello as you get here, and we will take a nice tour through the pitching to let some more people arrive. By the time I'm done with this, it probably will be 3 o'clock, and people will just be like arriving for the originally scheduled start time. Tyler Skubal, not safe against the Cubs, but if you're going to take a chance on anybody against that pretty good Cubs lineup, probably one of the best pitchers in all of baseball is a good option for that. 11,000, 11,500, you're paying through the nose to do it, but he's offset by projection even against that team by a little bit because he just is that good. Schwelly, number 2 on the board at 99 on FanDuel, a little bit discounted from both Skubal and Senga, who again is pitching at Coors Field, and only $300 more than Lodolo in Cincinnati against Arizona, only a few hundred more than Sonny Gray against the Dodgers. That's a tremendous option to have with Schwelly. It's not cheap, but comparatively, it actually is fairly affordable. Really like that spot. 10,000 on DraftKings, not exactly the same price advantage, but you do get that out of Kodai Senga. He's very different across sites. 10.6 on FanDuel, no discount for being in Coors. 9,000 on DraftKings, a little bit of a discount maybe for being in Coors. Tremendous option either way. You definitely want to have that. If he's a little bit lower owned, so much the better. But I expect people are going to be kind of over the Coors thing with as bad as this Rockies team is. Lugo against the White Sox, kind of an easy spot, 88, 89, 88, fair priced across both sides for being Seth Lugo, facing one of the worst teams in the league. Definitely an interesting spot. Ben Brown is the wild card here. 8,300, 7,000, projects out great. But as mentioned, has had his really bumpy spots this year. So that's one that can very much go either way. There's ceiling on that on the right day via the strikeout. He is a good strikeout pitcher. But there's also a pretty big basement on that one. Bryce Miller, I don't fully know what to expect from Bryce Miller here. I gave him his honest projection, and 77 feels really cheap to me against a gettable Angels team that has some strikeouts in it, but can also be very high danger. 85 is a little bit more high priced on DraftKings. It's in no way unfair. Bryce Miller's terrific when he's going right. But it feels a little challenging for the form, especially with some of the other prices on the board. But 77 on FanDuel, that is an appealing bargain. Even if we're just looking at like 5 innings, it's pretty appealing. Will Warren at 81, 8,000 against the Red Sox. Tough spot. Red Sox, Yanks in the Bronx on a warm day. It's another 80-something degree, 85-degree day here in the New York area. So I like Will Warren. I think the stuff is very, very real. I think the strikeouts are real. It's been difficult for me to get him into my weekly lineups in season long this year in the Dynasty League. And there have been spots where I've used him for DFS, but I'm trying to be selective about it. He projects out just fine. I do think there's upside, but it is a dangerous spot, especially with all those high-end lefties in the Red Sox lineup, with the power in that lineup in this ballpark. It's not safe by any means, but he's offset by price by quite a bit from the guys with whom he shares ceiling. He is a high strikeout pitcher similar to the top of the board. Bailey Ober against Toronto, low strikeout team, but priced in fairly efficiently, 86.77, particularly on DraftKings as a reasonable enough SP2 option. It's not a bad price. It's just it's not a super high ceiling spot facing that Blue Jays lineup. You could make the same argument about Sonny Gray at a much higher price against the Dodgers. He's capable of going out there and doing what you need him to do to pay those prices off, even against LA. But it's such a deep pitching slate that it feels like a why do we need to kind of a spot. The odds of Sonny going out there and putting up a slate winning score versus just being effective enough to pay off those prices is pretty different. So slate winning score out of him, it's a little bit more difficult to envision at those prices against that Dodgers lineup, but can get there. King of all trades, what's going on, dude? Good to see you. Birdsong again, 8,000, 8,600. You're paying full value probably on DraftKings at 86. There is danger in that Braves lineup for sure. Very, very high-end power in that lineup. Improved with Acuna back, so on and so forth. On FanDuel at 8,000, I think that's more worth taking a few shots on if you're building a bunch of lineups. He's right in the mix with like Will Warren, Bryce Miller, Ben Brown. All of those guys can find this strikeout game. I would say at least one of those guys is going to put up a score today. So you want to narrow down via that on FanDuel and just look at those four on the top, very top of the board. I think that's a reasonable approach. And that kind of carves out your need to go to Bailey Ober against the low strikeout team at a higher price. Your need to go to Sonny Gray at 91 against the Dodgers. It's similar on DraftKings. You can absolutely make a group of Birdie, this collection of pitchers. I would throw Lugo into that group, but you could leave him for the higher end group as well, given where his salary is relatively. And then, maybe pick your poison from a couple guys down this way, in which case I think Sears and Kramer probably make the list despite that ballpark working against them for DraftKings. At 63 and 68, those guys are offset enough by price, and Colton Gordon's right there too against the gettable enough Guardians team, that those are probably your bargain bin SP2s that you would want in a grouping rather than maybe some of the further down the list options. On FanDuel, that becomes a little bit less necessary, I think, given the depth that you have up here through the mid-range when this comes at very, very similar pricing and we only get one shot at the pitching spot anyway. It's easy enough to get pitching with higher end options than JP Sears, Dean Kramer against one another in that Sacramento ballpark. Buehler's a pretty hard no against the Yanks. Erod against the Reds. I can envision it, but I also don't know how deep he's going to actually work. He's been rehabbing. Chad Patrick against the Padres feels a little bit challenging, even at 82, 83. It's just a little bit offset from some of these other prices. I mentioned Colton Gordon. We'll give him a look. It's not extremely higher end than Sears, Kramer, any of these options. Projects out maybe marginally better. Wrobleski against St. Louis, difficult to envision. Logan Allen does have talent, is very, very cheap at 6. Been bumpy, though. Davis Martin is kind of a no against that low strikeout, hard-hitting KC team. Randy Vasquez, Kyle Hendricks, Antonio Senzatella lost 10 games before his team won 10 games this year, which is unique, I believe, in baseball history. Paxton Schultz for 3 innings. No thanks. Gophers like Senga. Yeah, Senga's a smash. Against that Colorado team, that should be a very, very good spot, even in Coors Field. Yes, he could get Coors Fielded to death, but it's less than likely with that pitcher. And there's just so much upside baked in. And you hope that people just go away from it. Just naturally going away from Coors is still an instinct for people when it comes to pitchers. Justifiably so. As we get into it, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, check out rotoscouts.com. If you're just arriving, it's almost 3 o'clock. Some people will probably pile in around 3 o'clock when the show is scheduled for on YouTube. Apologies for that, gang, but glad you guys are realizing that we're live, trying to pick up a little bit of time here on a massive Friday slate. That way we're not talking right up until lock. Going to be a long one, though. Red Sox at 3.82 implied runs facing Will Warren, who's up to a 29.7% strikeout rate. Kid's very real. 10.9% swinging, 30.5% CSW. Still needs to work on the whip. The walks, 10.3% walks, doesn't really play, especially not in Yankee Stadium, a 1.42 whip. Those numbers have been improved over the last month outside of, again, that meltdown that he had in his last start against the Dodgers where he went an inning in a third and gave up 7 runs. You can see the premium contact he's allowed is definitely dangerous against a team that can barrel the ball like this, that can hit the ball as hard as all of this. Top 5 hitters in the projected Red Sox lineup carrying a 48.7% hard hit rate currently. That does include Marcelo Mayer over just 35 plate appearances, but that's a fairly real number. So it's a dangerous spot to be getting Warren. 8,000 though. You're getting a team with about a 24% strikeout rate as his opponent. So I can see a lot of upside at the same time as seeing all the downside that's there. At worst, he's in your mix for SP2 shares on DraftKings. He's in your mix for cheap shares of high-end starting pitching on FanDuel. It's probably not your I'm building one lineup and I want to get cheaper at pitcher on FanDuel guy. He's got just as much, if not more, ceiling than anybody you would put on that list. But given the nature of the downside that we've seen from him and how quickly a few of those walks and one of those contact events can bend his score, he probably doesn't become my one lineup cheaper pitcher. Maybe he does, though. I don't know. The Yankees fan. We'll see. Walker Buehler, 76, 79. Just looking like a no. Yes, we can find success against these Yankees from time to time, but typically when they check in on a warm night in a home game at a 5.3 implied total, with some power showing against a pitcher who has not been all that effective so far, it feels like a stretch. 76, 79, not necessarily cheap enough. If he was down in like the sixes, maybe we'd be talking a little bit more about it. Because then you could argue, one of the more effective veteran pitchers at those prices. Maybe you do want to target some of the Yankees strikeout, but seems dicey. 5 2/3, 5 earned runs on 10 hits against Atlanta in his last one. Struck out 6 and walked 2, allowed 2 home runs. I could see a similar kind of a night. Maybe he finds the 6 Ks, but runs into a lot of trouble along the way. Again, this game does have a little bit of rain potentially coming through. It's a gorgeous day out right now outside of the too hotness of it, but probably it seems like passing summer shower kind of a thing in the New York area. So we should be fine. Definitely leads us to Yankees bats, but I think also we can be pretty easily led to at least some Red Sox bats. At that total, maybe they don't get as highly owned as they should be. I'd be surprised if they didn't pull maybe more ownership than what we're about to see projection-wise, which is currently at 0. Let me reload that page. I do promise the Red Sox will be more than 0% owned apiece. I guess maybe they're updating stuff over there. Give it one more shot. Yep, they must be running an update or something. There's zeros in there right now. I suspect that at that total, even in Yankee Stadium, even a Red Sox-Yankees Friday nighter, potentially, I think, could be a little bit lower owned than maybe they ought to be against a pitcher who, again, when he's on form, fantastic. But when he's missing 10.1% barrels, 50% hard hits allowed, 91.9 miles an hour of exit velo, all of those numbers are well over our thresholds. Will Warren is lucky to be at 2.16% home runs, giving up that kind of contact with half his games in Yankee Stadium. 12 games, 52 innings. He's been allowed to work a little bit deeper in games lately. Although the start at Coors only went 4 innings. I think that one got impacted by weather a little bit. Struck out 7, walked 2. Was good, but gave up 2 earned runs on 2 hits and ultimately 7 1/3 back on the 9th against Atlanta, 5 innings and then 5 2/3. So the pitching into the 6th is what we're looking for there with Will Warren, because Boone has that short hook nature to begin with, and he was really, really nailing Warren on those early in the season. Prior to the 7 1/3 on May 9th, across his first 7 starts, he finished the 5th inning only 3 times. He only pitched into the 5th inning 4 times. So there's always that lingering concern that you also just don't get the full depth out of Warren. Like the odds of him going 7 here against the Red Sox are a little bit more limited, I would say. Not that that necessarily benefits the Red Sox offense. The Yankees' pen can be very good. But I do think the Red Sox are on the board, especially those lefties, Jarren Duran, Rafi Devers, Willie Abreu up at the top of the lineup. I would throw Marcelo Mayer into that mix. You've got some quality bats here, and they're not crazy expensive, even the high-end guys. 53 for Devers is entirely affordable on DraftKings, especially when you can have Abreu at 42 right next to him. That just brings everybody down. Jarren Duran at 5,000. He's underperformed his talent overall this season, but in a vacuum, especially when we're looking at it in the context of fantasy points, 274, 323, 423 at 330 xWOBA, 105 WRC plus, 13 steals, 4 home runs, hitting the ball very, very hard. Lefty in Yankee Stadium that does what he does. Definitely interested. 34 on FanDuel is a good price for him too. 41 on FanDuel is correct for Rafi Devers. It's just the one high point that we have here. 8.66 in your home run model. He's at 12 on the season. Monster left-handed bat to put into this situation against a pitcher that, again, giving up this kind of contact. Look at these numbers and see how they're similar to these numbers. There's a lot of thread here. Devers is also drawing a 17.1% walk rate, which kind of jibes with that 10.3% walk rate that Willie Warren's allowing. Same thing is true with Willie Abreu, 10.5% walks. Carlos Narvaez, 9.6. Even the 8.6 on Marcelo Mayer in his tiny sample so far is respectable. Down the bottom of the lineup, the one thing that Christian Campbell might be demonstrating sustained ability around is his ability to draw walks at 11.1%, keeping him afloat. So there is a fair angle of approach here on Will Warren to say that, like, no, these Red Sox actually do align fairly well against him. Maybe that total's a little bit low. Definitely giving respect to Warren. And again, he's been tremendous in spots this year. And the strikeouts are very real. Abreu for just 42, given his 14.5% barrel rate, his 46.1% hard hit rate, just 22.8% strikeouts, 10.5% walks, down from 28% strikeouts last year, 27-1 the year before. This is over 228 plate appearances now. He's slashing 251, 329, 483 with a 232 ISO, 13 home runs on the board, 374 xWOBA. The only time you don't want Willie Abreu is when they're facing a lefty, and he's usually not in the lineup. Will Warren is notably not left-handed. This is a masher spot for Willie Abreu. He's too cheap at 32 on FanDuel. He's way too cheap at 42 on DraftKings. Narvaez is having a good year. 12.8% barrels, 40+% hard hits, 5 home runs on the board, over 177 plate appearances. Reasonable power output from a player that we didn't really expect much of anything from. 288, 356, 456 to go with that. 126 WRC plus. It's been excellent for this team. Cleaning up in this lineup now at a very affordable price. Mayer, you get multi-position for 27. I'd rather have him than Abraham Toro. Toro can put decent bat on ball from time to time. 71 pretty good plate appearances so far. 304, 310, 493. Creating around 17% better than average, while Mayer is 60 points below average, but that's 35 plate appearances. Kid's got some pedigree on him and fits in at second base for a cheap price on DraftKings. Shortstop, third base for Mayer on FanDuel. I might actually flip that and say I'd just rather have Toro because he fills second. But if I'm doing that, maybe I just drop all the way down to Christian Campbell and get my direct connectivity back to the 3 lefties at the top of the lineup, since I'm only building with 4 on FanDuel anyway. Trevor Story is still hitting the ball very hard. Striking out way too much at 31.3%, not walking the 10.4 that he did last year. He's back down to 2 years ago levels, 4.9% so far this year. Does have 7 home runs and 9 stolen bases, though, in 246 plate appearances. Is, a few days of counting stats for DFS. He's playable. 3,100, 2,900. He's not expensive. You can use him at shortstop in this situation. Cedar Rafael, Christian Campbell down lineup. Again, Campbell is drawing his walks, but he's been pretty exposed over the last few weeks. 5 home runs on the board and 85 WRC plus. He's treading water right now, but he's gotten very cheap at second base. Easy enough to use. Cedar Rafael is still hitting the ball very hard. 13% barrels, 45.7% hard hits, 6 homers, 7 steals, a slightly better average at 252, right? Yeah, 246 last year. But a lot of this still looks very similar to the guy that he was last year. Finished at a 79 WRC plus, but did hit 15 home runs, 19 steals, scored a respectable number of runs, drove in a respectable number of runs. Better DFS option a lot of days than maybe a real life player. So he's on the board. He's in the mix for that. On FanDuel, he's a little bit better where he maintains that multi-position eligibility, most notably second base. But it's a usable lineup up and down, assuming this is all projected lineup so far. Actually, the Cardinals lineup has come in. So by the time we get to the Cardinals, we'll probably have all these other lineups. But I'll grab it just because I pulled it up. But yeah, this is a deep Red Sox lineup that obviously has a very, very high peak, but it doesn't taper off that badly, even with some underperformance in recent weeks from some of the guys down the bottom and maybe an underperforming Trevor Story overall. Yankees up at the top end, tremendous power from the left side, and then Aaron Judge from the right side. Lot to work with up there. Trent Grisham at 44.32 against this version of Walker Buehler, who's allowing 10.1% barrels, 4.02% home runs, substandard marked by Stuff Plus, inducing just a 7.8% swinging strike rate. It is a very gettable version of Walker Buehler. 4.44 ERA, a 3.95 xFIP. This is at least sub 4, but it's not exactly gleaming. So Grisham, given how hard he's hit the ball, 15.3% barrel rate this year, 13 home runs on the board, also getting on base, feeding the run scoring machine for this team, is a very playable option. I'm still not comfortable with it. I still think at some point it goes pop, but I keep saying that and he keeps on mostly delivering. The average has come way down already, but we expected that to be the first thing that would crater. The power, the contact has kind of been maintained. Benji Rice at 48.34, 12 home runs on the board for him, 266 ISO, masher from the left side, reasonable enough, 8.6% walk rate. That's down a little bit from last year. Should help him with bolstering that on base even further. It's already at 330. You can push that up a little bit if you can get that walk rate back up, but he's cut strikeout to go with it. So it's a reasonable trade-off, and he's making ridiculous contact. Love the option against a pitcher who's allowing enough contact to believe that we'll see a few good batter ball opportunities out of Ben Rice today. Aaron Judge is Aaron Judge, 14.72 in the home run model, 21 on the season. I feel like it's been a couple of days, but never too long between Aaron Judge home runs. 66.48, you're paying a pretty penny for him, but in a game where the Yanks are at 5+ and one of the more interesting teams of the day, definitely worth paying. Cody Bellinger, Paul Goldschmidt at 4,500 apiece, 32-33 on the FanDuel slate. Shared first base positioning on FanDuel, but you also have Bellinger in the outfield. On DraftKings is just first base outfield. So both those guys together, one or the other as you alternate your way through Yankee stacks. However you want to approach it, both those bats are very interesting on a day-to-day basis. Both those guys having good seasons in slightly different ways. Bellinger's increased his premium contact rates notably over the last 2 seasons while keeping strikeouts low, improving his walk rate, creating a lot of runs, hitting the ball very hard. Lefty bat in Yankee Stadium against this righty plays up big time. I would probably lean slightly Bellinger, but that is not to say that Goldschmidt isn't also a very good option. 323, 380, 471 start to his year. 359 underlying xWOBA, 141 WRC plus so far. You get Jazz Chisholm back in this lineup now. 51-33, second base eligible on both sites. Jazz is more than capable of giving you third base value, but I would, if I have the option, I would rather take him and a high-end take him at second and a high-end third baseman if I can get away with it. So a lot of flexibility, one of the more dynamically flexible players on the slate, given the upside that Jazz can give you for power, speed, and fantasy point creation. Volpe's all right. Hits the ball very, very hard. I don't love the option. He's rarely my first Yankee stack build, but he gets in there, 41-31. It's just I'd rather have a lot of the other shortstops on a 24 shortstop or more slate. So he's fine. 7 home runs, 7 steals, does connect with the baseball very well. 9.9% barrels, 46.3% hard hits. Just a 192 ISO for that. He's okay. Austin Wells makes great contact as well when he happens to make contact. Everything else in the slash line leaves something to be desired, but 9 home runs, another lefty bat, a reasonably affordable way to fill catcher. 44 against this pitcher in Yankee Stadium's doable. 29 on FanDuel is a little bit better. If it's DJ LeMahieu, so be it at the bottom. And whoever it is at the bottom, the infielder is a mix and match quality guy. DJ, fair enough. He's cheap, second base eligible. That's fine. I'd much rather have Jazz at second base or third base or any of these other positions. But DJ's at least making okay contact over his 57. That home run came, I think, in his first game back, though. It's been pretty weak. Yankees bats. I'm going to say Red Sox bats over Will Warren a little bit. Realistically, that's a tie. And Will Warren is probably the more DFS usable thing, if that makes sense. But I feel like it's just not the best matchup for him, given the nature of the top end of this Red Sox lineup and what they do well. A little anti-Vegas total there. But again, Will Warren, super, super usable. Very significant strikeout upside. Projects out very well. If you weren't here before, he's right here on the board. And like I said, shares ceiling with, I'm not even sure if Bryce Miller shares it. Shares ceiling with all those guys. And just no Walker Buehler for me. If you want to roll the dice, if you're just going cheap, all the cheap pitchers, then sure, he's in the basket at 76 on DK. I just don't feel like you need to go that route. And he's here. Afternoon. Tall to God. Good to see you, buddy. I heard about the Rangers loss. I didn't catch the highlight shows this morning, but yeah, I heard about that. It's pretty rough. My friend Mike has Marcus Semien on his team in the Dynasty League, so he was texting about Marcus Semien's game the whole night. So that's how I heard about it. Astros 4.48 implied total. The Guardians a 4.11 implied total. Again, this one feels more like an offense game as well. But Colton Gordon coming in 5.95 ERA. That obviously is not appealing, but a 3.70 xFIP. And interesting enough, 23% strikeout rate against 3.4% walks. That's not crazy to think that maybe this kid could find a good day against the Guardians team with a projected lineup that has a 26% strikeout rate this year. Granted, some of that is padded by several very high numbers in small samples, but there are very gettable strikeout options here, while there are also very low strikeout options who are among their best bats, and at least one of them among the best bats in the league. So in no way is it a safe spot for Colton Gordon, but he is at least cheap at 65. So if you're rolling dice from the bargain bin on DK, you do it with eyes open to the fact that he's given up plenty of runs. He hasn't been good. He's given up a 4.60% home run rate, 91 miles an hour of exit velo. That does kind of equate to happenstance, though, because you can see where the barrel rate is. You can see where the hard hit rate is overall. It's only 19 2/3 in 4 starts. It could swing any which way. 5 innings on the 31st against Tampa Bay. He allowed 4 earned runs. He's allowed at least 3 earned runs in each of his 4 starts. Again, this is in no way safe. 6 strikeouts against Tampa Bay, 4 strikeouts against the Mariners, 7 strikeouts against the Rays, 3 strikeouts against the Royals. Believable numbers all. So he's gotten the Rays for pretty decent strikeout totals both times. He's gotten at least 5 in his last 3, 5 1/3 in the Tampa Bay game, pitched into the 5th in the KC game. 5 very cheap innings of 3-run ball with a handful of strikeouts, kind of like those games. It plays a little bit at 65. Again, if you're already dabbling in the bargain bin, at least consider him. Logan Allen at 6 is maybe on that list as well. It's just 17.1% strikeouts and 11.3% walk rate. Doesn't exactly stand out like that does. Again, this is small sample. This is larger sample. And we have history with Logan Allen to know that it's also realistically bad. He can be good from time to time, but overall, in the aggregate, he is not. 3.81 ERA, 4.29 xFIP. This was his best season so far. 22.2% strikeouts, 8.9% walk. Had a decent swinging strike rate, but a really bad CSW against it. Kept the CSW, lost the swinging strikes last year. Was worse, and then has kind of maintained that level of quality, actually come down even further. So pretty weak there. He does have 6 innings, no runs, 3 hits against Milwaukee, going back 4 starts, 6 strikeouts and a walk, probably his best game of the year. 5 2/3 against the Orioles, 6 strikeouts, 2 hits, all the way back on April 15th. The other ones have been pretty bad. So, once every now and again, once a month, somewhere around there, you'll get an okay start out of them. Does it come against a relatively low strikeout Astros team that is better than they've been playing? Probably not. It's a deep enough slate that you don't need to wrestle with him. But if you're throwing Colton Gordon into the mix and for $500 cheaper, you can throw Logan Allen into that same blender, so be it. Just don't get overexposed to that as your value play. Don't run a sim that would then insert him into each of your top 150 because it helps the lineup, the hitters project a little bit better, if that makes sense. You want to be realistic about what those chances actually are with your distributions. Astros bats at a 4.48 implied total against Logan Allen kind of speaks for itself. Jeremy Pena at 44.31, very playable, 318, 378, 492. Even I'm coming around a little bit. He's been sustainably good, over 263 so far. Like I said, it wouldn't shock me if, or I have said in previous shows, it wouldn't shock me if we saw the downturn hit just after a more extended stretch of being good than we've seen before. But he has been there. He's improved in some noteworthy areas like strikeout rate, like walk rate. 3.8 last year, back up to 6.1 this year. 20.3% strikeout rate 2 years ago when he was previously in the sixes, down to a 13.3 this year. That's down from 17.1 last year. So he's made some strides. He's hitting the ball a little bit harder this year. Could fall apart at any moment, but we're at 318, 378, 492 with 9 homers and 11 steals. Isaac Paredes went deep twice yesterday. We talked about the, what was it, Pittsburgh they were in? We talked about that ballpark on the show not being good for him for home runs. Shows that it's not entirely about the ballpark from time to time. 14 on the board for the season. He's been mashing, having a good year. 252, 347, 474, doing Isaac Paredes things. 222 ISO, 135 WRC plus. Just keep it rolling. He's a reasonable option at 43.32. Honestly, if you're just fishing around for one-offs at those prices at third base, that's totally justifiable. 7.97 in the home run model. Jose Altuve at 42.29, up to 264, 310, 404. 101 WRC plus, 9 homers, 5 steals. Holding our breath to see if it's sustainably up. But at least it's been a little bit better lately. We've gotten a handful of those home runs lately. Christian Walker with a solid barrel, solid hard hit. Has lost a little bit of his game in strikeouts and walks so far this season. The average of the slash line is just completely terrible. He's only hit 8 home runs in 247 chances, just a 151 ISO, 79 WRC plus, even by XWOA, but there's really not a lot to cling to here outside of just who we know this hitter has been over time. 9.98 in the home run model against Logan Allen. Could be a day to throw the gauntlet down with Christian Walker and say, all right, Christian Walker, here and no further. If you don't succeed today against Logan Allen, come on, man. One of the better right-handed first base power bats over the last couple of seasons. I like the upside, just under the magic number in the home run model. I was tempted to give it to him and make him the home run pick of the day. See if we could turn his engine over here, but I didn't. Johnny Diaz at 35.27, and we're still lingering 227, 263, 367. Guy is so much better a hitter than that. So much of a better hitter than that. 9% barrels, 43.4% hard hits. Low strikeout, low walk, still making a lot of contact. Just hasn't really seen the results that we're used to. 347 XWOA, but at least is very, very encouraging. Shiner is currently carrying a not as low as you would think. 252 BABIP. It's not a good BABIP by any means. It's dragging him down for sure. Last year it was 338. The year before 292 because he puts a ton of balls in play and hits them very hard. But that's low, but it's also not like who was it the other day that we looked up that was at like 212. So he's been a lot less than expected so far this year. But if I'm going Astros, I'm definitely using Johnny Diaz at 35 on DraftKings, and I'll have him in the mix on FanDuel at 27. Lower priority on FanDuel for sure, though. Jake Myers is a mix and match quality player who overperformed the beginning part of his season and is already starting to normalize. Still very playable. He's just another outfielder, though, priced like it. Brendan Rodgers, 26-23, at least hits the ball very hard at second base. Over 111, we're slashing at 190, 261, 260 with a 51 WRC plus. But he's got a 13.6% barrel, of 49.2% hard hit in his batted ball events. For those prices at second base, you could do worse. It's just we're also striking out at nearly a 38% rate. There are a lot of warts here. Cam Smith, Mauricio Dubon down the bottom of the lineup, mix and match pieces. Both, they're reasonably competent. Either guy could put the ball in play, 245, 328, 362, and 257, 292, 347, but not overly reliable. Cam Smith is making reasonably good contact, 8.3% barrels, 43.1% hard hits. I feel like those have come up a little bit recently. Well, we're up to 101 WRC plus, too. Let's see what's Cam's last couple of weeks look like. Oh, it wasn't this week. He's 1 for 20 this week. Good 2 weeks or so before that, it looks like. So from, let's see. I'll start with the 10th. So since May 10th, he's at 282, 356, 359 with a 110 WRC plus. Pair of stolen bases. Striking out still 28.7, walking 9.2. So those numbers are pretty similar. 0.077 ISO. So it hasn't exactly been hitting the ball hard in that stretch. Does have 6 doubles, no homers. 10 runs scored, 8 RBIs if you care about that sort of thing, which we don't. But again, 1 for 20 over this week. Yeah, on the rabbit holes here. Happy Friday. Happy Friday to you too, OMG Lols. I see you guys. Appreciate you. Andy, same deal. I think I said hi to Andy already, but let me make sure. On the Guardian side, going up against Colton Gordon for all the accidental praise I heaped on Colton Gordon before for his semi-respectable underlying numbers, you can very much play the Guardians against him here. There's definitely some power upside showing against the lefty. They've got some interesting cheap bats when we get to face a lefty like Jonkinsi Noel, who's down line up here. 2,300 in the outfield on DraftKings, 2,300 first base or outfield on FanDuel. Guy can mash. Over 104 plate appearances, he's been downright bad. 150, 173, 230. Those are unsustainably bad numbers. Might not even be in their lineup today. But if he is, you also might get the guy who had 13 homers and 198 plate appearances last year. Well, mashing his way to a 268 ISO, a 118 WRC plus on 14.5% barrels. There were quite a few strikeouts along the way. There were more walks than we're getting this year while getting almost exactly the same strikeout rate from him. He's in no way reliable. He's in no way even necessarily good at baseball. I mean, he's obviously demonstrably at least somewhat good at baseball. 10.71 in your home run model, though, I think is the underlying point. That is approachable against a pitcher who's already given up a fair amount of at least exit velocity, a lot of home runs on an extreme fly ball trajectory. That's where he gets burnt a little bit, is like, the barrels being down, the hard hits not being all that extreme, but the launch and the exit velo, when you get that combination of factors, and yes, that's included in barrel, but it's just when they catch him on that, it gets out of the ballpark quite frequently is the point I'm trying to make. There's a higher number of those incidents of happenstance, even when that is lower end happenstance. Starting at the top of the Guardians, though, Stephen Kwan always in play. Lefty doesn't matter when we're looking for a contact hitter here. 306, 367, 426. Great correlated scoring option directly into Anel Martinez, Jose Ramirez, a couple of switch hitters up top. David Fry from the right side. Somebody pointed out with Fry versus Fried yesterday. It was funny contextually as far as the present tense, past tense. Dimitri, not too late. Yeah, the show actually started at 2:30. So not too late. Just in time, who knows? But yeah, we're only a little bit in game by game wise. But yeah, we've been at it for a minute already. Anel Martinez at 245, 265, 380. Mix and match quality player, a 265 underlying ex-WOBA over 171 plate appearances. He's kind of just cheap at second base on FanDuel. In the outfield on DraftKings for 35, he's kind of just another outfielder. What you like about him is the correlated scoring option in a decent situation here, directly tied to Stephen Kwan, Jose Ramirez, and the next couple guys. David Fry, we saw him for a fair amount of power last year. Pretty respectable season last year, as we looked at yesterday. So far this year, he's striking out quite a bit in 8 plate appearances. He struck out in 4 of them. All right, fine. Whatever. I think we can reliably go to Fry here against a gettable enough lefty. You get him at catcher on DraftKings for just $3,000. That's got some value in it. 2 positions on FanDuel, outfield eligible there. Only 2,400 on FanDuel, I think, does make him appealing there. You have Jose Ramirez at 57.36, but everybody around him being on FanDuel anyway, everybody's dirt cheap. On DraftKings, Stephen Kwan is at least correctly priced, but everybody else is really cheap. So this is an easy Guardian stack to build. FanDuel, I mean, if you just top forward on FanDuel, you're at $28.75 a piece for a stack that includes Jose Ramirez and Stephen Kwan. DraftKings, if you just went top 5, which you can do, $41.20. They are very, very cheap. Carlos Santana riding a 12, I want to say, game hit streak. He's been really good. 261, 364, 397. His creator runs 21% better than average VWRC plus. He's hit 7 home runs. They were going over his numbers during the Yankees broadcast yesterday for his career. 300-something home runs, 500-something doubles, 1,000-something RBIs. He's had a really, really good career. He's among, I think it was top 10 for home runs among switch hitters. It's an underrated player. Still good. 3,800, 2,800. Cheap. Strikes out 17.4% of the time. Walks 13-1. Again, this kid's not really walking anybody against a decent strikeout rate in 4 starts. But Santana's in my Guardian stack if I'm building one. Gilbert Arias puts good wood on the ball, 9.7% barrels, just 39.6% hard hits. You get him very cheap at shortstop, multi-position on FanDuel. Probably prefer him at second base on FanDuel for 24. Mixed results so far, 231, 296, 349, and 85 WRC plus, 4 home runs, 2 steals. It's actually nothing mixed. Those are pretty poor results over 217. We've seen him be a little bit better than that for stretches, but we're still waiting for the talent to really click in and some of the contact that we've seen him make really actually get delivered upon. Noella talked about Will Wilson. Austin Hedges down the bottom of the lineup. Wilson, pretty empty, 49 plate appearances so far. Hedges does have a little bit of pop in that bat from time to time. 3 home runs on the board in 61 plate appearances. But you can see substandard barrel hard hit rates each of the last few seasons. A lot of strikeouts, pretty low walk. So at best, a mix and match guy. And I'd just much rather have David Fry up here against the lefty at catcher than going all the way down there. I think we follow the numbers here and just go Astros bats, Guardians bats, Colton Gordon. And then if you got to do that, then you could throw Logan Allen into that mix. Those are really only DraftKings options on the mound, though. Michael Knack, what's going on, buddy? Michael Knack says, what's cracking today, gang? Let's go. 34 people here hanging out. Hit the like button. Subscribe to the channel when you get a chance. That does really, really help. Especially if we can get that number over 1,000 like I've been harping on for too long now. Hop into our Discord too. The Discord's free to all. You don't have to be a subscriber at the website or here on YouTube or anything like that. Just link is down below in the description. There's also links to the website, which I don't remember if I updated or not today. Might take you to yesterday's projections. Navigate your way to today's projections if you want them. Everything is under $1 a day at rotoscouts for access to the entire website. MLB, NBA, NHL, all still going on right now. How about those Pacers, by the way? Woo! Who saw that coming? Led for 0.3 of a second the entire game. I know one person that was calling for the sweep. I didn't think the Pacers were going to win. I didn't think they were going to be in a single game. What's funny is we were talking about, their chances to win. And I said that one of my friends was saying, OKC in 6 and blah, blah, blah on our text thread. And I said, OKC's not going to win a game this series. I don't think OKC's going to win, or Indy rather. Indy's not going to win a single game this series. And I follow that. This is last week. I follow that with Indy's not going to win a single quarter this series. I think the second thing is still true. Just weird results. Cubbies, Ben Brown on the mound, 7,000, 8,300 over on FanDuel. Differently priced relative to the nature of the sites. At 83, that is a competent pitcher for a fairly cheap price on FanDuel, but you're only getting one bite at the apple. You're facing a very competent Tigers team. And Ben Brown has given us some shaky spots this season as well. 5.72 ERA, but a 3.23 xFIP. You can see that kind of stands out against one another. 32.3% swing CSW against the 13.3% swinging strike rate. Both of those numbers are dynamite. 1.46 whip is really high against just a 7.5% walk rate. It's given up a lot of premium contact at 9.3% barrel, 45.3% hard hits, 91.6 miles an hour of exit velo. Been a little bit rough in some spots, but can spike monster upside days. Again, Cincinnati last time out, 6 innings, 1 hit, faced 20 hitters, struck out 9 of them, walked 1. The immediate start before that at Cincinnati against the exact same team, 4 1/3, 8 earned runs on 7 hits, struck out 4 and walked 2. Start before that was kind of split between. He faced Miami. I think we used him that day. 4 2/3 of 6-run ball on 7 hits, but he struck out 8 and walked 0. A 9 strikeout game, a 6 strikeout game going back over the 2 immediately before those, 3 runs and 2 runs, more respectable outings. A 4 strikeout game in which he allowed no runs. But then before that one, a 6 earned run game, a 5 earned run game early in the season. So there's a lot of bad in with the good. So I don't think that you're safe with Ben Brown, but there's definitely upside here. And here, he's just way too cheap. That is a very, very playable option at 7,000 on DraftKings. 28% strikeouts, 13.3% swing. That's all you really need to know. These Tigers at 22.8% strikeouts for this projected version of the lineup. Same group of hitters, 25.8 last year. Lot of gettable hitters here, but a lot of high danger hitters as well. A lot of guys who crush the ball. So Brown's not safe, but he's maybe, let's see if we got any ownership updates. We'll go to DraftKings for this one. Andy's saying I might take a few stabs at him on FanDuel at Ben Brown. I like it. I really do. Like I was saying about Will Warren before, with him potentially not being my my go-to, I think I would probably rather have Ben Brown against the Tigers, I think, than Will Warren against the Red Sox in Yankee Stadium. Especially where you get a discount on Brown. I think on FanDuel they're about the same price. There is still not ownership in here. I don't know what's going on. Over at RG. There we go. Come on. Whoa. All right. Well, definitely not a secret. I didn't think he was a secret. I didn't think he was going to be projected this highly owned. They have him. Man, we got him right around the same fantasy projection. They have him slightly higher, like a half a DraftKings point higher, I think. It's not crazy, like unplayable ownership, but he's gonna be more popular than I was hoping on DraftKings. Interesting. So that probably 1,000 more. See, that's interesting. I think for what that does then, let me go back to the pitching board for this. So you can see where he projects, but we're getting a lot of popularity there. Excuse me. He is a higher end pitcher than Colton Gordon, but if I can shave $500 off my price and shave like 15 to 20 pretty critical points of ownership off my SP2, my discount SP2, and go this direction, I think it's at least worth considering. Facing the Guardians, probably a little bit better, honestly, than facing the Tigers, but Colton Gordon not as high end in terms of the strikeouts as Ben Brown, but as I just showed, not nothing either. And a low walk rate, there's reason to maybe consider that. I don't dislike anything about Ben Brown at that price other than the fact that a lot of people apparently are going to go that direction. Not that I even really care about ownership in a vacuum, but around what would be the crucial discounted SP2, that's where I would start to care a little bit about, maybe segmenting that off, undercutting that slightly, getting into some more shares of guys like Colton Gordon as tournament plays. If people aren't actually out there, if RG's got it wrong and people are not out there other than them banging the drum for Ben Brown, and you're seeing it lower elsewhere, then by all means, jump on it and play it. It does demand the answer of where he is on FanDuel, though, too. I suspect he's also going to be very popular on FanDuel now. But he's not. That's perfectly reasonable popularity. Where is he comparative to everybody else? So on FanDuel, he falls in, as I suspected, behind Warren, just slightly. Both in the single digits. They've just got a big spread on FanDuel today. Actually, there's no way this adds up. Yeah, maybe it does. That's very close back and forth, considering they're right next to each other. I think you can just go either way. I think you can back and forth that one. If you're building more than one lineup, you can use them both. And the more you build, the more you can just go back and forth on FanDuel because they're right next to each other. There's really no difference. As I said, I probably would, if I'm tie breaking it, I think probably would rather face the Tigers than the Red Sox in Yankee Stadium. And Warren's got just as obvious flaws, and some of them demonstrably worse as far as the contact, as far as the walk rate to Ben Brown. So very, very similar upside and basement with both those guys. Tariq Skubal. I don't think we have to worry about it. 34.7% strikeout rate against a 2.5% walk rate, 75 2/3 in 12 starts, 2.26 ERA with a 2.15 xFIP, 119 marked by Stuff Plus, an 18% swinging strike rate. Not only is he one of the best pitchers in baseball, this might be the best we've ever had him individually. So happy to pay it if I can figure out how to get there. 11,500, 11,000, even against an excellent Cubs lineup. Good pitching tends to beat good hitting. 311 implied total for the Cubbies tells you a lot of that story. That said, even the Skubals of the world can get nailed from time to time. And if you're going to chase contrarian shares, then, as I've said a bunch of times this year, might as well do it with a really good team. I tend to try and also emphasize doing it with a good team that's not facing the best pitcher in baseball. But that is the reality that we have with the Cubs today. A few shares, if you're just considering it, this is a low-owned tournament dart in my portfolio of 150 lineups. Sure, so be it. Go for it. In 20 lineups, maybe you throw it in there once and you do it with like a 3-man around like, Hap, Tucker, Suzuki, just the obvious, or like, against the lefty, maybe we throw like Carson Kelly into the mix or Dansby down this way. What I wouldn't maybe do is use PCA as much today. Young lefty bat, even with his success this year, 25.5% strikeouts, just 4.9% walks. The Seiya Suzuki strikeouts I worry about a little less. One, they come with more walks. Two, I think you get just more, a little bit more of a chance at him not striking out, if that makes sense, more experience. And then everybody else is at least reasonably high walk, so they might be able to squeeze something out against Skubal. But again, it's Tariq Skubal. It's very difficult to see. Hap at 4,000, 3,100, 4 home runs, 3 steals, 348 on base, a 109 WRC plus. Excellent table setter for the rest of this lineup, even with his power down a little bit so far this year. That's why the price is also down. Kyle Tucker, even against Tariq Skubal. You don't really sweat the lefty. Against basically every other lefty, you don't sweat it at all. Maybe you throw some Tariq Skubal into the mix here. But 62, 4,000 with anybody, it's difficult to draw against this pitcher at those prices. 55, 36, same thing with Suzuki. 14 home runs on the board, creating runs 44% better than average, carrying a 278 ISO, mashing everything he makes contact with. Challenging matchup. Kelly at 47, assuming he's in there, 3,200 on FanDuel. Perfectly affordable for a guy with 9 home runs from the catcher spot and 148 plate appearances. 11.5% barrels, 44.2% hard hits, not striking out, drawing plenty of walks. Very, very strong start to the season for Carson Kelly. He's been in and out of the lineup, and they do have different directions to go, but I would expect him here against the high-end lefty. But again, the high-end lefty of it. PCA I just talked about, especially when you're getting him at 58.41. It just feels like it may be day to give our DFS excitement for PCA, maybe a day off. But he's been undeniably tremendous this year. 275, 312, 557. Creating runs 41% better than average. 16 home runs and 21 steals now. Monster start to his season. Totally justifies those prices, but challenging spot to play those prices. Dansby at 45.29 is appealing. 11 home runs, 7 steals, a lot of power, a lot of premium contact. It's high strikeout, medium walk rate, but we know what we're getting with Dansby. If you're mixing Cubs into a few shares, $4,500 Dansby is one of the directions I would go, and I would just want to play some of those cheaper prices. Nico, Justin Turner, Matt Shaw gets a little bit more thin down toward the bottom. Shaw at 248, 331, 336, if memory serves, had a good night last night. Justin Turner is kind of mix and match quality at the absolute best these days, 207, 301, 264 over 103 plate appearances. And then Nico maybe gets on base, steals you a bag, provides some correlated scoring. On the Tiger side, you can see they're sub-4 total against Ben Brown. And again, that is kind of noteworthy for him. Parker Meadows back at the top of this lineup at 4,200, 3,300. Pretty rough 16 plate appearances to start out, but gotten on a few times. 375 on base in the tiny sample. His creator runs 30% better than average. 1 stolen base on the board and has made good contact. 11.1% barrels, 44.4% hard hits. Very playable from the left side. And if you get the downside of Ben Brown, this is a pretty good chance Parker Meadows is going to be a part of it. You can see he's already immediately priced in right with everybody else on FanDuel. Slightly offset in the low 4s on the DraftKings slate. And everybody in this lineup is below 5,000. Glaber at 48, Riley Green at 47, and some tremendous power bats like Kerry Carpenter and Spencer Torkelson in the mid-4s, the low 4s. I don't mind the power upside if we're just talking about the home run hunting with this team. The top 6 hitters, I won't throw Wenzel into the mix. 33 plate appearances that defy anything he did last year. But those top 5 hitters, a very realistic 13.6% barrel out of those hitters so far. 44.4% hard hits. 3 guys in the mid-teens with home runs already. And everybody's that cheap against the kid giving up 9.3% barrels, 45.3% hard hits, 91.6 miles an hour of exit velo. Again, Ben Brown has kind of gotten a little lucky to keep home runs at 2.36 so far. So maybe some sneaky upside. And if Ben Brown's going to be as popular as he is, maybe a little bit of reason to consider the Tigers as a contrarian option. I can't imagine they're going to be popular against his popularity. If I'm going that way, I want their hard-hitting lefties. I want both Kerry Carpenter and Riley Green in that lineup. And I would most likely include Parker Meadows, which means I'm really considering the top 5 in various combinations. Maybe it's just a set of combinations of 3 of those 5 hitters, and you do that multiple times. You do lose quality down lineup. Wenzel's had a good 33 plate appearances so far. He's hit 3 home runs. He's been mashing the ball. Last year, 4.3% barrels, 30.3% hard hits with 9 home runs over 425 plate appearances. So in 33, he's hit a third again as many home runs. Difficult to envision him sustaining that kind of an uptick, but he's very cheap. If you're going to this team, you can mix him in. Hits from both sides of the plate. Dylan Dingler has been good. 6 home runs, very solid slash line from the catcher spot. He'd be very playable on DraftKings at 4,000 if you're stacking this team. 2,800 on FanDuel. I would much rather have Spencer Torkelson and 3 of the other guys from higher up in the lineup, I think. Just deprioritizing catcher a little bit on the FanDuel slate. But if I'm building more than one Tiger stack, he can absolutely be in my second one or at least my third one on FanDuel, even where I'm only getting 4 chances. Trey Sweeney, Javi Baez down the bottom of the lineup. Baez is at 275, 305, 429 with the same 6 homers he had 100 plate appearances or so ago. Down to a 299 xWOBA. Most of it turns out probably was an illusion. He's mix and matched level playable. Same thing with Trey Sweeney. I expect a little bit more growth from Trey Sweeney as time goes on. 208 pretty mediocre plate appearances so far this season. Joker saying don't play Javi Baez. He's under the desk dreaming. Scooble with a bullet. I'll go Ben Brown, even with the popularity. The one downside of Ben Brown DFS wise is the popularity. And he also comes with a little bit of visible downside in some of his performances. But he's tremendous. And then Tigers bats well over the Cubs bats matchup wise. Lone Wolf's here. Woo! What's up, buddy? Yeah, 31.6% Ks against lefties, 24.8 against righties for Ben Brown, it looks like. as Dimitri calls out in the chat. So yes, does find success, but not necessarily. I mean, slightly more than his just overall rate, which was in the high 28s. So yeah, does strike out lefties, but those are also some pretty hard hitting lefties that could take advantage of the downside. That's why we play the games. But yeah, that is certainly a factor. But if I'm going to that Tigers team, like those are their best bats. Those are the guys that you just want. You don't want to say, he strikes out too many lefties. Let me grab the Tigers righties necessarily against them. A couple good righties. Spencer Torkelson, obviously, major power upside. I kind of breezed through those guys, but all of Riley Green, Spencer Torkelson, Kerry Carpenter have been hitting the ball very, very hard. Have a little bit of strikeout in their games, but create runs like crazy, hit a bunch of homers. Yeah, there you go. Nail, head, so forth. And you also get the benefit of targeting one of the more popular or most popular pitchers on the slate, which has its appeal. And when you're doing that, you do kind of, again, want to get to a better team. And there were some very, very good bats in that group. D-backs 4.89 implied total, Reds at a 4.71. It's difficult to really justify too much of Lodolo, too much of Erod. I wanted to look up Erod in the oops. That's not where we wanted to click. There we go. So it was just one rehab appearance, and it was in their complex, the complex league. 4 2/3. Faced 18 hitters, struck out 9 of them because he's struck out 9 of them and gave up 3 home runs. That's the most Erod thing I've ever heard. I would assume 5 innings is easy in the cards. He's got kind of a rubber arm when he's healthy. And they don't really care as much as they might need pitching. It's not like he's precious to them. 72, 8,000 with 5 innings on. That's where he's projected. He's a 24.6% strikeout pitcher this year against the team with a 23.9. Definitely some upside for Ks from Erod, but we've seen Erod over the years. We know he comes with a ton of run downside. 7.05 ERA so far, but that comes against a 3.82 xFIP. That's a lot more believable, a lot more respectable. He's given up a fair amount of premium contact. It's led to a few home runs so far this year. Last season, just 10 starts, 50 innings, 21% Ks, a 5.04 ERA, a 4.24 xFIP. Year before, in a more complete season, 23% strikeouts, 3.30 ERA with a 4.06 xFIP. He was pretty good that year, but fell off, was very injury marred, lost time to personal issues and everything last year, and has just kind of been a mess since. But you can occasionally find a decent strikeout game. I'm just kind of riding with the environment here with that high implied total with some of these quality Reds bats, some of the righties that they have in this lineup. So I think we're leaning that way. Going the other way with Lodolo at 81 on DraftKings, maybe. At 96 on FanDuel, it feels really challenging. Against the Diamondbacks, when they're coming in at nearly 5 runs in this ballpark, when they're coming in with an 18.2% strikeout rate for this projected lineup, that's helped by Ildemaro Vargas there at 16.7, but not by much. The 8 guys around him are at 18.4, so it's no help at all. Lodolo is striking out 20.7. That's against a 4.8% walk rate, so that's good, but it's not tremendous blow-you-away DFS stuff. 3.10 ERA with a 3.91 xFIP. 10% swinging, just a 25.7% CSW. Doesn't give up many barrels, but a near 40% hard hit rate, 89.5 miles an hour of exit velo is not that far off our threshold of 90. And I get all these high-end Diamondbacks. I really don't see it at 96. Maybe if you're just tournament hunting and you want somebody that nobody's going to want to use, sure, but that feels like a misprice over here. Over here, it's playable, but I'd pretty much rather have any of the guys that we've talked about at cheaper or similar prices. So I'm just leaning bats. Ketel Marte from the top of the Diamondbacks, 299, 422, 606, 11 home runs and 154 plate appearances, 307 ISO. He's been mashing 15.7% barrels, 50% hard hits. doesn't strike out, draws more walks than he strikes out this year so far. Both those numbers dramatically improved over last year. It's a moderate sample because he missed some time, but last year he hit 36 home runs and 583 chances, was every bit as good. 151 WRC plus. Corbin Carroll at 5,700 has a tremendous barrel rate, excellent hard hit rate, 4,000 on the FanDuel slate. Those are two expensive players to grab, but this is a very high-end situation in which to grab them. Carroll, 18 home runs, 10 steals, creating runs 48% better than average, an underlying 400 xWOBA, a 311 ISO. There's nothing not to like about either of those guys' game. And then you can help average down the pricing by getting to some of these highly respectable cheap bats that they have the rest of the way down the lineup. They're priced more top-heavy than their talent is. I mean, these two guys are by far the most talented guys. Look at that formula. Those two guys are the most talented two guys on the team. But Lourdes Gurriel has his place, 3,800, 2,800 for what we need him to do. 8.3% barrels, slightly up from last year. Hard hits are down a little bit, but he's looking more like the hitter from 2 years ago to me. 9 home runs on the board, 253, 300, 443. Needs to push the on base a little bit. 328 xWOBA suggests that we should see a little bit more continuing improvement in the slash line. But he's carrying a 190 ISO. His creator runs 3% better than average. He strikes out at a 13.6% rate. That should jibe very well with the 20.7 that Lodolo's at. Right-handed bat. I like the upside. 5.58 in the home run model, not nothing. Eugenio Suarez in this ballpark against anybody? Definitely. Sign me up for some home run upside. 4,500 on DraftKings, too cheap. 3,000 on FanDuel, probably too cheap. 9.93 in the home run model. He's hit 16 this year. 272 ISO, 14.5% barrels, 50.9% hard hits. He's even got strikeouts down this year. 24.4 down from 27.5 last year, 30.8 the year before. Walks are sustained where they were last year. They were higher 2 years ago. There's a little bit more 3-2 outcome there. Hasn't really resulted in much more success in the slash line, 232, 311, 504. But overall, creating runs 22% better than average in the heart of one of the better lineups in baseball in this ballpark tonight. Love the upside for Eugenio. Need him to keep mashing, too. Critical component on the dynasty team. Randall Grichuk at 3,000, 2,400. Mix and match righty. There is power there. There is premium contact. 12.3% barrels, 52.3% hard hits, over 92 plate appearances, 3 home runs on the board, a 214 ISO. Grichuk has always been able to deliver medium caliber right-handed pop. 5.86 in the home run models, got it pegged. 12 homers in 279 chances last year, 16 the year before in 471, 19 in 538 back in 2022. If we're just home run hunting, if we're just hunting for extra base hits, some RBI opportunities and so forth to pad our fantasy scoring, Grichuk is absolutely in the mix. Probably a little bit better at 24 on FanDuel to help with the overall price. Like if you wanted to go 1-2, skip over $2,800 Lourdes Gurriel and save a little bit more by going there, it's 3,300 a piece, 3,275. The best way to do that would probably be to, unfortunately, leave Eugenio out, and then you're at 3,225, slightly cheaper. Obviously, if you're doing something like that, you're taking your price to a different place. The Marte, Gurriel, Suarez, Grichuk stack is under 3,000 a piece, 2,975. Then you just straight line DraftKings kind of like that. And you've got Gabriel Moreno in the mix down there. Obviously, a super playable Geraldo Perdomo, wherever he's sitting in the lineup. But even if you just straight man the top 5 with those 3 cheap prices there on DraftKings, you're at 4,480. That's high somewhat, but it's not completely crazy for Suarez. It's cheap for those two. That is a reasonable 5-man price for a very high-end 5-man stack. If you wanted to replace Suarez with Moreno, Phil Catcher, bring your price down even further, I think that's totally doable as well. Much as I love Eugenio, there's power in that 42.60 that we're now paying. Yeah, totally nuts and leave. Whoops. Actually, this would be the way to do that. Second base, shortstop, those two. I think Moreno would be the interesting answer that way. That's a weird stack as a 5-man. 42.20, I'm filling second short catcher I've got two. Oh, no. I don't want Vargas at third. I forgot I had Marte at the positional conflict there. You could build this stack, but it's less appealing with Ildamato having to play third base. I don't love that. I was trying to get cute with the pricing and work the catcher into it and second base while using Perdomo, because Perdomo down the bottom of the lineup is a fantastic option for wraparound play. Has been over the last couple of seasons. We've called him out numerous times for his on-base skills, and he's always been good at that. He's gotten much more opportunity up lineup this year, especially when Marte was out, and he's delivered. He's still, he's down a little bit. He's in 3,200. FanDuel for the longest time had him at 39. DraftKings has him about 43, so similar pricing site to site. 275, 373, 422. His creator runs 23% better than average. Definitely an interesting option to swap in and out of lineups. If you get him higher up in the lineup, he's more and more playable. Once he crests, like, let's say six and above, it's 7 and 8 that I like him in less. Because in this range, he's directly correlated to the very top. More often, you're going to get him up there. And down here, you get him as the wraparound play. It's just in these two spots, he gets a little bit more lost. Tao is giving you 6 home runs, 6 steals in his 125 chances. Not much else, 5% below average for run creation. Ildamato, there's really not that much to see here. That's essentially a full season if you put it together of around 240, 250, 5 home runs total. On the red side, 471 implied total, super playable. We've talked about TJ Friedl a few times recently, 43, 3,000. Having a good year, 300, 383, 419. Been a good table setter for this team. A lot of walks, very low strikeout. Reasonable for balls in play. What he's not is really a big power bat. He has hit 4 home runs, but you can see it in the barrels, the hard hits. Not much power there. But as a table setter, ahead of Santiago, Spencer Steer, Tyler Stevenson. We have this lineup confirmed. Let me grab it. I haven't been checking. We don't have the other one, but we do have this one. Is Ellie out, or is he just not in the lineup? Is he off on family leave because of the sister? That's obviously a hit to the quality of their lineup in the overall sense. You do have hard-hitting Christian Encarnacion Strand in the lineup, 2,500. Barrels and hard hits not showing up because I think it cuts off his name on Fantasy Labs. One day they'll fix this. Yeah, Christian Encarnacion. There we go. This year so far, 4.4% barrels, 42.2% hard hits over his 60 plate appearances. He did hit a pair of home runs. 8.4% barrels, 37.3% hard hits last year, but a 28.5% strikeout rate against just 3.3% walks. That was over 123 pretty weak plate appearances. Hit 2 home runs in that stint. 13 home runs in his first opportunity in the show back in 23, slash 270, 328, 477 with a 207 ISO over that stint. Was pretty effective and was giving them what they expected from this player. What he's got in the very real sense is ludicrous raw power from the right side. So if you're just targeting Erod, who is a targetable enough pitcher, a cheap Christian Encarnacion Strand as my like Ellie replacement, kind of. It's obviously not a 1-for-1 equation, but that's probably a direction I'm at least considering. What sucks is he's first base only on DraftKings, and so is Spencer Steer. On FanDuel, you get three positions on Steer, so it's less impactful. Steer is a reasonable bat in this stack, but he's entirely skippable if you're just going to go to cheaper Encarnacion Strand. I think that's fine. It's just, you kind of want 4 or 5 in that stack a lot. But Steer over 226 plate appearances, 4 home runs, just 222, 288, 329 this year. A 284 xWOB is kind of the most standout part. Last year, he hit 20 home runs, stole 25 bases. The slash line was pretty mediocre. Just a 178 ISO, just a 96 WRC plus. So kind of caught the upside of the coin last year, and this year he's just been kind of all tails. mix and match caliber, I would say. A little bit more interesting with the positional flex on FanDuel. Arguable whether you want him or Santiago Espinal in your lineup on FanDuel if you're playing it at second base. Between those two guys, you can obviously use them both. They play multiple positions, and you've got the util. What I don't really like is Santiago Espinal at third base. 3,300. He's a very light hitter, 245, 302, 293. Hasn't really been providing any correlated scoring so far this season. That's a pretty rough spot. I'd much rather have essentially any other third baseman on the board. So he's usable in the correlated scoring sense in theory on FanDuel, but it's been pretty ugly. Stevenson is very interesting. 3,600 for the premium contact that he makes. At catcher, 16.1% barrels, 57.1% hard hits. For that cheap a catcher to throw at Erod, that's a reasonable one-off. That's an appealing option in DraftKings stacks. On FanDuel, he's just another guy. 2,800, but there's nothing special about being a catcher on FanDuel, so I like it a lot less there. But the capability still resides in the bat. 5 home runs on the season, a 211 ISO over 108 plate appearances. Second catcher in the lineup, Jose Trevino, not as much of a bat, despite the fact that he's slashing 294, 325, 487 this year with a 193 ISO. The 283 xWOB is telling. He has hit 3 home runs, but in all of last season, he hit 8 over 234. He hit 4 over 168 the year before, 11 in 353 chances the year before that. So maybe we're not exactly way ahead of the pace, but he is in no way a premium bat, in no way an overly reliable DFS option. Connor Joe is a mix and match quality player. Against the lefty, you can always find success with him. That's what he's kind of kept himself above water doing so far, but pretty weak. 45 plate appearances, 220, 267, 268. Last year, over 416 chances. He hit 9 home runs. Not a great total. 228, 320, 368, 92 WRC plus, a 140 ISO. Been a minute since Connor Joe's shown us all that much. Matt McClain's having a bad year. 6 home runs and 11 steals. If we want something to cling to, we've got an 8.8% barrel, 44.8% hard hits that aren't crazy far off the numbers from 2 years ago. 30% strikeouts, 10.2% walks. There's some good, there's some bad there. Missed all of last year. When we last had him, he had 16 home runs and 14 steals in 403 plate appearances with a very solid slash line. I wouldn't write him off. If I'm stacking this team, I am probably interested. 4,000 at second base, though, feels kind of high considering how reactionary their pricing is with everybody else. It's surprising to see him still up there. 27 on FanDuel feels a little bit lighter, but very playable, and everybody on this team's cheap to throw at Erod in a good hitting situation. I'd probably be looking at it's weird to start here with a bad hitter and work down, but one, I think I would want McClain. So let's see if we can find connectivity there. DraftKings, I want Stevenson. Now I've got catcher first and second. We don't have a shortstop to work with. Don't want Espinal at third. I can't have a second catcher. This is an annoying lineup to work with on DraftKings. I think I am going to throw Connor Joe into that. And I guess I would just take TJ Friedl. So I'm filling 2 outfield, catcher, first base, and second base. And I'm targeting Erod with a team carrying a 4.71 implied total, and I'm getting them for 3,320 a piece across my 5-man. It's more a bargain bin offense, I would say, given this version of the team, than it is a premium purchase. And they're priced that way. So it's effective. Diamondbacks bats, Reds bats, Erod, then Lodolo, even with the potential innings limitation on Erod. I don't see much for either pitcher. A little bit more strikeout upside with Erod. No Corbin Carroll for Arizona. All right. Okay, is that what it is? Think he plays tomorrow. Dimitri says flight issue coming back. Okay. Lone Wolf reminds me of the weather as well. Yeah, thanks, buddy. Appreciate that. Yeah, Cincy is the per Roth trickiest forecast of the day. Saying rain between 7 and 9 p.m. We did see Pittsburgh just yesterday delay until 10 p.m. and then play. But we'll see what happens here. Keep an eye on the weather in that Cincy game, though. That one does seem pretty concerning with a fair amount of weather in the area. But again, we've got potential rain in New York, passing showers. Washington, passing showers. Cincinnati, most concerning. St. Louis for the Dodgers-St. Louis game, passing showers. Colorado, passing showers. All those are yellow. And then the last two games, just San Francisco and the Athletics, wind blowing out in both those games. A lot of appeal, late games. Royals and the White Sox. Davis Martin, not really a strong contender for fantasy shares today on his 14.4% strikeout rate, 3.67 ERA, but a 4.37 xFIP. Plenty of premium contact allowed so far. Probably a little bit lucky to be at 3.17 on the home run rate. That's a respectable launch angle, but a lot of barrels in there, a lot of hard hit, a lot of exit velo. Not terrible for walks, but just way too much contact available against a team that just does nothing but put bat on ball like KC does. And they've got some high quality offensive pieces in this lineup to work with. That was clunky. So much more on the KC bats side of that equation. Lugo, on the other hand, against the White Sox, we're throwing way worse pitchers than Seth Lugo at the White Sox basically all season. So definitely interested. 3.45 ERA, a 4.11 xFIP. Not tremendous for strikeouts this year at 18.8%, just 7.5% swinging, 27.4% CSW. Both those numbers were better each of the last 2 years. He found more strikeouts along the way. He's given us good depth, though, 60 innings in 10 starts. If you do the math, he's averaging a pretty solid shot at a quality start at the very least. He's slightly offset from the very top of the board price-wise, and he gets the best matchup or one of the best matchups in the game. So why not? Especially if you're building more than one lineup or more than 2 or 3 lineups, you definitely want to work some Seth Lugo in. I would suspect he's going to be pretty popular. I'm talking about him a little bit more like he's not. I think people will go here. But with Tarek Skubal on the board, with cheaper options like Ben Brown and Will Warren carrying that strikeout upside and just the overall depth through the mid-range, maybe Lugo doesn't get quite as popular as he ought to be because he is a little bit more high-priced. White Sox bats against to start with the home team for a change. Not that appealing. You get a little bit every now and again out of this team. And I would say that an argument you could make is that Lugo's allowed some home runs this year. It's not directly attributable to that's too much hard hit. That's too much exit velo, but the barrels are manageable. The launch angle is non-atrocious. 4.60. There's some happenstance in there for sure. But if we're maybe targeting that and we're targeting a pitcher who does allow a fair amount of contact, given the lack of swinging strikes, the lower and not terrible, but lower end strikeout rate, maybe it's a day you could argue for Chase Meadroth, Mike Tauchman get something started. If Lou Bob's in the lineup, knock on wood, he actually comes through. You get Kyle Teal's debut at 2,500. There's at least, some pieces to argue for here. This lineup is confirmed. This lineup's not, but I have their confirmed now. I'll show it to you in a moment. Lou Bob is in it, fortunately. Royals is here too. So Tauchman and Meadroth as the table setters. Meadroth's fantastic hit tool, getting on base at a 401 clip over 162 plate appearances. Currently runs 27% better than average. Very, very little power in that bat, but does not strike out, draws quite a few walks. He's a really interesting hitter in a go-forward sense. 3,000, 2,700, second and shortstop eligible on both sites. Definitely a usable piece and one of the more appealing White Sox bats. Given the propensity for contact available against Seth Lugo, you can definitely go there and expect a few balls in play, and then it's a matter of coming down to BABIP and then what the correlated scoring looks like once he's on base. Tauchman is very much the same thing, absent some of the hit tool. Has maybe a little bit more pop than Meadroth does. Gets on base at an equally aggressive clip, 435 on base over 69 plate appearances this year. It's lower on base than that over time, but a very, very good option for on base. 357 last year, 363 the year before. So Tauchman creates a lot of correlated scoring situations himself. Andrew Benintendi has been okay this year with 6 home runs and 150 plate appearances, a 355 xWOBA. 19.3% strikeouts against 9.3% walks. There are things to point to in there, but 15.2% barrels up from 6.3 last year, 2.9 the year before come on, that's an illusion. 38.1% hard hits with that, 177 ISO with that. It's a couple batted ball events that look really good. Miguel Vargas, 10.8% barrels, 42.6% hard hits. Another guy with a notable leap in those two departments without seeing too much results-wise. 178 ISO. He has hit 8 home runs, but it's in 245 plate appearances. It's not exactly outstanding. 107 WRC plus. It is worth pointing out, top 4 in this lineup right now, bad as they are, 129 average WRC plus. Small sample still on Tauchman, medium sample on Meadroth and Benintendi. Josh Palacios, 24-23. He's a mix and match player at the absolute best. Teal is a high-end prospect, though. Just getting the call. He has 8 home runs and 7 stolen bases with a 197 ISO, 25.4% strikeouts, 14.1% walks, slashing 295, 394, 492 with a 130 WRC plus in AAA this year. High-end kid. Another piece that they got from Boston. Lubob at 4,200, 2,900 has gotten just ludicrously cheap for what we know this player's talents are. But he's also hovering results-wise at 177, 266, 286. A 309 xWOB is not encouraging. He's at least made decent contact in his batted ball events. That's the only, that and the stolen bases, 21 steals. Had some days off earlier in the week for mental health. Bounced a ball off of his head in batting practice and missed another game or two. But he's back. He's very cheap. If you're going to the White Sox, I encourage you to continue using Lubob. If you don't play the White Sox, you don't have to worry about it. 661 does lead the team in the home run model. Josh Rojas, Tim Elko bringing up the bottom. Sub Mendoza for both those players and all 3 guys at the bottom of the lineup here. On the Royals side, Jonathan India, we're just looking for correlated scoring and the return to form. It is a player on whom, the day that we get a home run and a couple stolen bases to go with our just on base and correlated scoring from India, I want to be there. 33-25. He's very cheap at second base now, but it's been a pretty light season from India so far. Bobby Witt's a superstar. 7 home runs, 21 steals. Makes phenomenal defensive plays. I did see that highlight. Michael Garcia at 46, 3,000. Now 6 home runs and 13 steals on the season. A 311, 375, 477 slash line. Kid's been tremendous this year. 46, still very affordable on DraftKings, even though he's their second most expensive player. And when you stretch for this stack on DK, it's very, very easy given how cheap everybody is. If you just top 5 that, fill your entire infield for under 4,000 apiece. And you're getting India, Bobby Witt, Michael Garcia, Vinny Pasquantino, and Sal Perez against Davis Martin. That's stupid cheap on DraftKings. The existence of that as a 5-man almost makes me want to go play on DraftKings tonight so that I can play that 5-man. That better be ludicrously popular as a combo. And that's ignoring Jack Caglianone, their hot rookie in the next spot. You could easily swap him in for anybody in that stack if you want to. He is going to be very good. He's got an RBI on the board. He doubled yesterday in the first game. It's been a slow start, over 13 plate appearances, but the kid has tons and tons of power. He was mashing in the minors, got the call the other day, and has been a mainstay in the lineup the last few games and is very affordable still. People will go there in their Royal stacks, maybe even more than he's totally justifies, outside of the fact that he's very, very cheap. Sal at 3,100 on DraftKings is dumb. 26 on FanDuel, it's dumb. We don't care about catcher eligibility there, but that's just a very good power bat who is not that far off the mark from where we expect him to be in most of his attributes. A 353 xWOBA. He's just underperformed as far as the results go. Don't worry about how many times the roulette wheel came up red previously. If you're going to bet on black, bet on black. Doesn't have any impact. Sal under the covers has been mashing baseballs. Drew Waters, John Rave, Kyle Isbell down the bottom to save us a second. Mix and match players at the absolute best. I think that's fair to say. If you need them to help average down salary, they're all just another outfielder on either site, even at the cheap prices. This goes Seth Lugo, Royals bats, specifically the top 5 on DraftKings, top 6 on DraftKings. White Sox bats if you want them. Bad, but there's a little bit of playability on them, but in no way a priority on a 12-game slate, and no Davis Martin. No Pods, no Brewers lineups yet. Randy Vasquez, 5,800, 7,500, pitching to a 13.6% strikeout rate and 11.7% walk, 3.99 ERA, but a 5.56 xFIP. Was a popular, I want to say it was last week. He was a popular streaming option because he was a 2-start pitcher. I didn't pick him up. I let somebody else make that mistake. 3 1/3 of 4-run ball against the Pirates. I mentioned it's been streaming pitchers against the Pirates, but not this one. 3 strikeouts, 3 walks, 2 homers, 4 earned runs. Game before that, 5 strikeouts and a walk with a home run, 3 earned on 6 hits over 6 1/3. That starts okay, but it was against the Marlins. Has given up at least 1 home run in each of his last 5 games, including 2 home run games over that stretch. Gettable enough for power in my book, given the 11.6% barrel. 3.11% home run, maybe a little bit low for that. He is slightly below the threshold, though, in a hard hit and exit velo, 89 miles an hour of exit velo. So it's been a little bit okay at missing part of the component necessary for home runs while still allowing plenty. The Brewers kind of caught in between as far as the quality of their offense. There are some bats that we like quite a bit, and I can easily see them succeeding against all that contact that Randy Vasquez allows. If they do it while getting a few extra base runners out of that walk percentage, then we could really be off and running with a Brewers stack. 4.63 implied total is appealing. On the Brewers side, Chad Patrick on the bump, 8,300, 8,200. The better of these two pitchers, while still not being a super high priority, not against the Pods. It's a low strikeout opponent with a lot of upside in their lineup. He's pitched to an okay 21.6% strikeout rate, 6.8% walks. Medium contact, he's kind of the opposite. Fewer barrels, but over the line in hard hits and exit velo, and definitely getting lucky to be at a 1.89% home run given all this premium contact on that kind of launch. He's just happened to miss a few barrels along the way. Stuff Plus does like the arsenal. I don't want to take it all away from him, but only 8.9% swinging and an ugly 22.9% CSW, just not throwing enough strikes overall. Against a team like this, that could be deadly bad. So it's just not a great combination of factors coalescing around Chad Patrick today. And it's not like he's super cheap, 83, 82. Just doesn't feel good. I don't think we're buying anything. At those prices, give me Will Warren, give me Ben Brown. If you're building 150, you can definitely mix him in, but I would still, I think even with them being popular, I'd probably play that somewhere in the middle. Like, those guys owned by Will Warren, Ben Brown, public ownership, me, Chad Patrick ownership, something like that. Me being on Will Warren, Ben Brown, below the field, but above Chad Patrick. So we're mostly focusing bats here. I do think even with a sub 4 total, the Pods no worse than on the board. You get at least 4 very good bats here. Fernando Tatis Jr., 51, 37, arguably a couple bucks cheap on either side. 13 homers, 12 steals, a 340 on base, a 382 xWOB under the covers, creating runs 30% better than average, hitting the ball extremely hard. Speaking of hard hits, Jackson Merrill, 39.1% hard hits, but 15.5% barrels. That evens out in the long run. 5 home runs, tremendous 152 plate appearances to start his year. Manny Machado at 48-34. What is not to like about Manny's season? 8 home runs, 8 steals, fine. That's maybe you can quibble with the pace of the home runs. If you're looking for him to hit 40 this year, he's probably not going to get there. But he's had a tremendous year. He's mashing the ball when he makes contact with it, not striking out, drawing plenty of walks, slashing 317, 382, 498, a 403 xWOBA. It's all at worst real and could honestly improve from these numbers given that. 150 WRC plus leads this team by 20 points or by a dozen points, excuse me. Manny's been great this year. Not priced up quite enough. Gavin Sheets at 431 cross sites, 11 home runs on the board. He's had a good year too. 207 plate appearances of effectiveness, 221 ISO, a 346 xWOBA, 54.5% hard hits, 10.5% barrels. Then we get into the ugly part. Xander Bogaerts missed yesterday. I think he's dealing with a shoulder issue. Not sure if he'll be in the lineup today. Jose Iglesias, Tyler Wade, both lower end players. You do get multi-position eligibility, cheap pricing. You only want one of those guys, and it's probably Iglesias between the two. He's giving you a little bit more to work with, but they're both very low end options. Jake Cronenworth is the best of the bunch from down lineup. Elias Diaz is nothing more than a cheap catcher with a little minor amount of pop that you might be able to scrape off the bottom of the barrel. 3 home runs and 143 chances. Lockridge gives you a little bit of speed, but no opportunity to use it, given a 280 on base over his 77 chances so far. Cronenworth is the justifiable major league talent from 5 down, but it is a top-heavy lineup. Everybody who's going to be rostering them is going to be using essentially those 5 players. So you do have to keep that in mind as you're building your pod stacks. How are you utilizing? What are you putting them in lineups with? It is kind of the same thing on the Brewers side. They've got an interesting bat down here in Jake Bauers to throw at this bad righty, assuming Jake Bauers is in the lineup and that's where he's hitting. If you get him up here, so much the better. Bauers is carrying a 20% barrel rate over his first 97 plate appearances this year. He's got an 11.34 in the home run model today. He's hit 4 already this season, a 205 ISO, a 364 xWOBA. Last year, dozen home runs and 346 chances while also stealing 13 bases. He's a downright interesting fantasy player when he's in the lineup, especially against the high contact, low end righty. 3,900, 2,300, especially at 23 on FanDuel. That's a really cheap, interesting enough bat. That's somebody to keep in mind. Just, if you're hand building 2 hours from now, it is, that'd only be 619. I was worried that it would be, 745. If you're hand building 2 hours from now, it's like, who did Terry say might be an interesting one-off? Jake Bauers, $2,300 on FanDuel. Like the upside. You can, right there, it's staring us in the face. It's over the magic number on the home run model. He's the highest ranked home run option on this team right now. Rhys Hoskins may be a little bit more reliable, maybe a little slight bit more realistic. 9 home runs for him in 231 chances. He's also been crushing baseballs. 12.1% barrel, 44% hard hits. A lot of strikeouts out of both those hitters, but they can also both draw walks. I would expect stolen base upside from Bauers more so than Rhys Hoskins, but he's even swiped 2 bags this year. Everybody on this team does at least a little bit of running. Sal Frelick does a lot of running. He's got 11 stolen bases on the year. He's also getting on at a 352 clip. Hit his 4th home run the other day on a day where I called him a light contact-based hitter who doesn't hit many home runs. I remember these things, Sal Frelick. That's fine. He's cheap. He's very usable. Lefty bat against this pitcher, easy enough to go to. Still, I would probably rather have Turang, Churio, Yelich, Contreras, Hoskins, Bauers. So at best, I still think he's like my 7th highest priority on this team, but he's very playable. If he's hitting 5, that's fine, but it's also a weird spot for his skill set in the lineup more often than not. I'd rather have him down low in the lineup or up high in the lineup. Middle of the lineup, he's just okay. Contreras, 4,500, very affordable at catcher, 7.42 in the home run model, sub 20% strikeout while drawing a 14.5% walk rate. He's hit 5 homers, stolen 5 bags. He's definitely a little behind the pace that we would normally expect him, but he's still getting on at a tremendous clip, 351 on base. Surprised that he's sub 100 in the WRC plus department considering that, but I would expect in due time we'll be well above 100 again. 13 home runs and 10 steals on the board for Yelich in 256 plate appearances. Remains a very hard-hitting lefty with a lot of appeal, a lot of upside. He's striking out too much so far this year, walking a little bit less so far. 48-33, you're getting a discount baked in for the perception of struggles. Absolutely love Christian Yelich here. Jackson Churio, 49-33, differently priced across sites. FanDuel's a little bit cheaper, 8.49 in the home run model. He's at 10 with a dozen stolen bases on the year, 101 WRC plus, a glaring 298 xWOBA, 186 ISO, 286 on base. Just 7.1% barrels, 36.8% hard hits. Both numbers down from last year's stint. Walks cut in half from last year. There are definitely some signs of the ongoing sophomore slump out of Jackson Churio, but we know what the ceiling can look like, and when we get him against a pitcher like Randy Vasquez, fire away. Bryce Turang, 49-28, another guy very differently priced across sites. Base hits, stolen bases on the DraftKings slate give you a little bit more value, 4,900. Still a high price to pay. He at least fills second base. Out of the top 4, he's your lowest priority guy. I'm definitely using those 3 and then 2 of these guys more often, I think. So maybe I would rather have a little Frelick than Turang, given that price offset. It doesn't save you that much money, probably puts them more on an even playing field, and you have the direct correlation with Turang. But that is a high price. Over here, that's a much more reasonable option at second base. A lot of steals, good on base, good correlated scoring option. Brewers bats, Padres bats. If you need a pitcher, it's Chad Patrick, but I don't like him at those prices. Bunch of people here hanging out. Hit the like button. Subscribe to the channel if you get a chance. If you haven't before, we are trying to get that number up to 1,000 people, and that will apparently open the doors and flood the ticket counter. I don't know what the hell I'm trying to say. Then I get a lot more people's attention on the channel. It'll feed the algorithm a little bit better. It allows us to monetize some things and so on and so forth. Check out rotoscouts.com for all your projection needs. Baseball, basketball, football, hockey, all for under $1 a day, all in. You get all of it, not per sport. Weekly, monthly, quarterly plans available. Trying to keep money in your bankroll while we build the bankroll. Not a lot going on in chat. Larry C in there answering questions. Appreciate you, buddy. Helping out R. Jones on weighted on base average. If you're ever wondering, a fantastic resource for these sorts of questions is the glossary over on Fangraphs. It took me a second there because I was grabbing the link. If you hit up their glossary there, you can get fantastic definitions for all the different stats. They also give you like a little table of it helps with identifying what's good and bad within these ranges. It gives you ranges of outstanding, very good. If you're between X and Y, you're outstanding. If you're between A and B, you're terrible, and so forth. So it helps contextualize what the numbers actually mean, in addition to giving you the definitions. Really, really good little glossary there they got going there. Blue Jays, 4.01 implied total. The Twins at a 4.61. The Blue Jays starting with Paxton Schultz. As mentioned, we got an inning and a third the last time, but we got 2 2/3 to start before that. 3 inning. It was an inning and a third in bulk relief. 2 2/3 in an opener situation, kind of like today. So pitched into a third inning. 3 innings in a bulk relief appearance before that. Going back in time prior to that, a 2 1/3 and a 4 1/3. So we've been all over the map as far as what the innings count might look like. I'm just giving him 3. I think 3 is reasonable. And obviously, giving him 3 as a ceiling, I think I gave him an inning and a half in the projection. But I would consider his ceiling to be 3 innings. I don't think you want that for 4,000 on DraftKings against a Twins team that is good enough to do a little bit of damage there. What he does offer you is a 30.9% strikeout rate over his 13 1/3, his one start, 2.03 ERA with a 2.72 xFIP. He's inducing a lot of swinging strikes. He's throwing a lot of strikes in general, but he has a fair amount of premium contact. That's a lot of exit velo. There's some home runs on the board there. Stuff Plus doesn't really love the arsenal either, so we don't know what it looks like in the longer term. So not a huge fan, even at 4,000. I don't love how that option plays because you're almost certainly not getting more than 3 innings. 55 on FanDuel, I think, is easier to just ignore. Bailey Ober against a low strikeout Blue Jays team. It's the same thing day in, day out with these Blue Jays. They're not great. They're pretty top heavy as an offense overall, but they do limit strikeouts kind of up and down the lineup. 17.6% strikeout rate for this projected version of the lineup. Same group of hitters last year was in the 17.8% range. So not a lot to target here. Bailey pitching to an 18.6% strikeout rate this year. That's in spite of a 12.4% swinging. Just 28.6% CSW. Those numbers don't connect together great. Last year on 14.2% swinging, 29.4% CSW, he was at 26.9% strikeouts. So that is a big downturn in putting hitters away. 25 last year, 22 the year before last rather, 22 and a half, 3 years ago. So there has been a notable downturn for Bailey Ober overall in the strikeout department. The strikeout to walk is still effective enough. He can still get through games, 3.48 ERA, but a 4.51 xFIP, a too high whip of 1.35 over his 12 starts, his 62 innings. He's capable of giving you depth. Last time out lasted just 4 innings, though. 4 strikeouts and a walk. Not sure what happened there. 6 2/3 the start before that. Give up just 1 earned run on 7 hits, but only 3 strikeouts, 1 walk. 3 strikeouts in 3 straight games prior to the 4 strikeouts over 4 innings last time out. It's been not a great season from Bailey Ober. I think with the Blue Jays, at best, we're just kind of bypassing this situation. They offer moderate appeal, light appeal. I think Vegas kind of sees it the same way, given the 4-run total. Just kind of putting them in that useless territory. Bo Bichette is affordable at $42.29, though, at shortstop. That's a high-quality bat to get those at those prices. 8 home runs, 4 steals this year in 281 chances, but a 10% barrel, a 50.7% hard hit with all this contact that he makes and that the pitcher's allowing. That's appealing. If you're considering Blue Jays at all, you most definitely want Bo Bichette in there, and it's very easy to access him. Vladdy at just $3,200 on FanDuel is ludicrous. He should never be that cheap, especially not when he's at a 14.6% barrel, a 53.6% hard hit. He's hit 8 home runs, just a 147 ISO, but a 411 xWOB under the cover, the 130 WRC plus. He's been making much better contact. He's just not quite finding the results. But you want to be there on the day when it just roars. 12.24 in the home run model today. Buy it against the contact available against this pitcher this year. Addison Barger's been really good over the last 100 plate appearances. 271, 333, 496, 6 home runs, a 225 ISO overall this season, 14.3% barrels, 54.1% hard hits. Starting to kind of add to this lineup, starting to kind of outperform when he was just talking about the nature of the contact that he makes. He's actually finding some decent results for it now. Alejandro Kirk at 32.26, pretty good 195 plate appearances. 8 and change barrels, 55.6% hard hits. Both numbers up pretty significantly year over year. 10.3% Ks and 7.2% walks is what you always like about Alejandro Kirk. Those are numbers that he sustained over time. And if he's going to be doing that while making improved contact, that becomes an interesting bat at the catcher position when you can get him at 3,200 against the pitcher allowing plenty of contact this year. 305, 354, 390 for Alejandro Kirk. George Springer at 46.31 has 8 home runs and 7 steals, making very, very good contact as well. 18.8% barrels is more than double his number from last year and the year before. 47.8% hard hits. He's he's slashing 250, 367, 462. So we're seeing good results. We're getting the on base, the correlated scoring. He was a little bit higher end in the front of the slash line, but as long as he's still getting on base to go with all that premium contact, it's tremendous. 400 xWOB under the surface, too. Nathan Lukes, Alan Rodin, Jonathan Klaas, and Andres Jimenez at the bottom of the lineup are all basically mix and match quality. Nathan Lukes, mediocre contact. He's hit 4 home runs. He's holding down an okay slash line. He is getting on base effectively. 360 on base, creating runs 23% better than average. If I'm drawing a card from down lineup, I would probably use him just for the on base, the correlated scoring. But he leads directly into 3 bats before you get back up to the guys that you're using in the rest of that stack. He's not really an end piece to a stack. He at least is another low strikeout, fairly high walk guy. So you get a lot of contact kind of similarly like you get a lot of contact out of Alejandro Kirk. But his contact this year has been lower end. So at best, just another outfielder. And then Rodin, Klaas, and Andres Jimenez are difficult. You don't want more than one of those guys in any given lineup, if that's what we get. I forgot to check if this was confirmed. The hell is this game? Oh, there it is. I was like, is this game somehow not on the slate anymore? I couldn't find it on Labs. It's not confirmed yet. On the Twins side of this one, again, 4.61 implied total going up against this combination of pitchers. It's Eric Lauer in the bulk relief role. Or supposed to be anyway. He's pitched to a 26% strikeout, but a 4.24 xFIP with a 9.1% walk is targetable. Just 9.4% swinging with a 27.4% CSW. All these barrels, all those hard hits, all that exit velo. Lucky to be sub 4, and that's already still a very high home run rate. So targetable Eric Lauer after the fact with a bunch of premium bats in this Twins lineup. Byron Buxton at 56.38, expensive but worth it. 10 homers, 10 steals in just 203 plate appearances, a 227 ISO. Creating runs 22% better than average. Mashing, if we're talking about his premium contact on batted ball events. Love Buxton anytime he's healthy, and he's healthy right now. So get him while he's here. 10.34 leads the team in the home run model, but you do have other appealing power bats that are showing their power upside. So there is quite a bit to like about the Twins at a mid-fours total. Trevor Larnach, 4,031, cheap for a guy with 9 home runs, a 111 WRC plus, a 45.2% hard hit rate. That's a decent enough lefty bat for my purposes. Ryan Jeffers at 38 is a pretty affordable catcher, 9% barrels and 44% hard hits out of him. The results, not great. 4 home runs and 197 plate appearances, a very healthy slash line at 254, 345, 399. 355 xWOB is encouraging for some more of the premium contact to come around and result in some more big events, big days. But he's creating runs 14% better than average, despite just a 145 ISO, sub 20% strikeouts, drawing a 10.7% walk. There's a lot to like with Ryan Jeffers this year. Matty Wallner, tons and tons of power. 4,500, 3,200, 3,000. Love the upside there. 85 plate appearances, 3 home runs, slashing 268, 388, 521 with a 254 ISO, 18.8% barrels and 52% hard hits. Sustainable over time in medium samples those years. Like the upside from Matt Wallner quite a bit here. Even once we get Eric Lauer in the game. What's our lefty-lefty numbers? That's not what I wanted. Not a big enough sample there. 118 plate appearances in the career, lefty-lefty. 4 home runs on the board. Maybe some pinch hit risk around Wallner if he starts the game. That would be a little bit of a concern at 4,500. That's kind of a high price to pay if you only get like 2 plate appearances out of him. So bear that in mind. And you might not even get him in the starting lineup. Ty France, 37-28. Having a pretty decent year, over 242 plate appearances in terms of the slash line, 273, 335 on the front end. That said, just a 100 ISO, 105 WRC plus is good, not great. 354 xWOB under the covers, though, should be capable of giving us a little bit more. Has made better premium contact this year than either of the last 2 years. Willie Castro's also got the premium contact up slightly over the last 2 seasons. He's at 255, 341, 441 with 6 homers and 3 steals. And as we looked at yesterday, surged over the last month or whatever our sample was that we picked up yesterday. Royce Lewis at 31-27, pretty weak 87 plate appearances, but we know for sure that he's a better hitter than this. He's not a 139, 218, 215 hitter. This is not going to last much longer. 10.8% barrels, 41.5% hard hits under the covers. That's good because we're only at a 310 xWOBA to go with the already atrocious slash line. I'm a big believer, and against this combination of pitchers at 31-27, if the Twins are going to go off, I definitely want to have some Royce Lewis in that mix. Brooks Lee, 29-25, affordably priced, mix and match quality, and Christian Vasquez isn't overly appealing in any way, shape, or form. Twins bats, Blue Jays bats, Bailey Ober, and I would fade the pitching situation with the Blue Jays. 4,000 for Schultz's 3 innings. If he finds that strikeout form, maybe you got a little bit of scoring there, but it's dicey. I don't love doing that. One will say it's crazy we can't get it. We just haven't yet gotten over 1,000 subs. It says, if you're watching this video and you haven't subbed, there's something wrong with you. People providing lesser quality content over 10,000 subs. Probably why you don't win shit either. Appreciate you, buddy. Appreciate all of that. Yeah, I'm not entirely sure why we hit 900 and change pretty quickly, pretty efficiently, and then it was just like, it's been a crawl over the last handful of months from that number up to the 1,000 threshold. But not sure why. I don't tend to subscribe to a ton of channels, but like anybody that I watch regularly, I'll click the subscribe on, and it does actually help. Now, if I'm just being honest, we could definitely use the numbers to be bolstered. So tell your friends, get in there and just boost the algorithm a little bit, and then people find us more naturally and we don't have to harangue people for different things. Dimitri says, nothing like a Terry breakdown and a nice cold beverage. I like it. Dodgers at the Cards. We've had this Cards lineup all along. We finally got here. Dodgers lineup is also in. Looks pretty much like the expected. Dalton rushing into the lineup in the bottom spot. No Will Smith. Otherwise, looks pretty similar. So Sonny Gray's our challenge here. 97-91. I think it's a spot where we can just kind of bypass, especially because there is an impact from the Dodgers in his projection. Mid-13, 25, against a lower-end team, you're getting Sonny into the 30s, FanDuel-wise, above 15 on DraftKings. For that money, the way that he projects out, I don't love it. The strikeout rate at 27.2% is very good still, and against the 5% walk rate, it stands out. It's very, very good, but it's down from last year's 30%. It's more reminiscent of who he was like 2 years ago, maybe somewhere in between. 12% swinging is down, 31.2% CSW down to 30% this year. So there has been a little bit of a downturn. You can see it most notably in Stuff Plus, down from 110.5 last year to below average 96. So maybe something to watch there in the long-term sense. He looks a lot more like the more gettable version of Sonny Gray outside of the 3.65 ERA, the 3.05 xFIP. Those are two nice things to have. A 12% swinging strike rate and a 30% CSW in absence of the context of last year are very, very good. So there are reasons to continue to like Sonny. It's just, why do we want to attack the Dodgers on a slate with all these pitchers that we've talked about that are usable? I really don't see it. You probably do get him at lower ownership than maybe he ought to be. You do have tournament upside here for just, he's not unfairly priced. It's just, he's kind of unfairly priced for the natural handicap that comes with playing the Dodgers. That's really all it is. So if you're rolling those dice, you're doing so knowingly. Justin Robleski on the other side, kind of looking like a target for some Cards bats here. 1 start, 9 innings so far for Robleski. That amounts to a 4-inning appearance in relief on May 15th in the show. Struck out 4, walked 0, just 1 hit allowed. 5 innings against the Nats in a start back on April 8th. He gave up 8 earned runs on 8 hits, struck out 4 and walked 3, allowed 2 home runs. Has pitched in AAA in the interim in a mostly starting role. 4 innings last time out, gave up 9 hits, 5 earned runs to the Athletics AAA affiliate. Struck out 6, walked just 1. An inning in relief work earlier in that same series. A start prior to that, 5 1/3, 4 earned runs to San Francisco's AAA affiliate. 7 innings of 1-run ball against Colorado's AAA affiliate in a home game. 5 strikeouts, 2 walks. At best, in AAA, we've been medium strikeout, medium walk with a lot of runs on the board. A handful of home runs, but a lot of runs overall. I don't think we got much to work with Robleski. What I'm trying to figure out is how much I want to get invested in Cards. As you guys know, if you've been here before, if you are a subscriber at the channel, I'm not a huge fan of this Cardinals lineup. Not a single person with 10 home runs in it yet. Not a lot of quality here, but they are creating runs at least at the top end, somewhat. There are guys who used to be very, very good. There's some maybe up-and-coming guys in here. Against this pitcher, with a mid-4s total to work with, at the absolute worst, they're on the lower end of one of the top tiers of the day in terms of stacking. You can easily get there. I think they ranked out a little bit lower than that, given some light fantasy totals and just the aggregate fantasy number. You can play a little bit more around with the Vegas total. But among the high-end teams, I still want them less. There's just less appeal here. You do have a couple guys here with double-digit barrel rates, mid-40s hard hit. You've got Lars Nootbaar up at the top of the lineup, but lefty-lefty there is a little bit of an impact, even against any lefty. 250, 356, 403, a 355 xWOBA for Lars, 8 home runs, 4 steals, creating runs 17% better than average. Definitely still their most appealing bat, 4,600, 3,000. He's fine. I absolutely want him if I'm going to this team, but I don't know. The draw is limited for these guys. Mason Wynn, 4,029, 6 home runs, 7 in an okay year, 273, 349, 422, getting on base at a nice clip. Creating runs 20% better than average is definitely good. But the individual upside for DFS has been kind of hit and miss. Brendan Donovan having the best year on this team at 314, 384, 50, but just a 135 ISO. Despite the 4 home runs, he really doesn't hit for much power. Can drive the ball in the ballpark a little bit more. 7.5% barrels, 41.2% hard hits. But again, undeniably effective this year. 376 xWOBA tells you that it's been real. Wilson Contreras down below 4,000. 250, 328, 391 this year. Not inept up there, but not where we expect him necessarily. 6 home runs on the board, a 141 ISO, but a 373 xWOBA with the 12.3% barrels. That is something to pay attention to. So he's just gotten cheap. It's just we're getting him at first base now, as I've mentioned a bunch of times this year. Ivan Herrera had a very good 120 plate appearances, delivering on the promise of what he's supposed to be, but kind of alone in this part of the lineup. Nolan Arenado mostly shot 38-27. There's really no appeal in the slash line. Every now and then he'll turn on one even with that slow, loopy, broken swing. He doesn't strike out a lot. He walks occasionally. He's creating runs 12% worse than average. He's got a sub 300 xWOBA. None of this is good. Ryan Veladdy's had a few interesting batted ball events anyway over his 8 plate appearances so far. 16.7% barrels, 83.3% hard hits, and he's gone over. I guess he walked one time or got hit by a pitch. I know we looked at him, I think, yesterday. I just was mixed up between which one of these guys he was, because there were 2 of these guys who were mid-20s that we looked up yesterday that had a couple years of cups of coffee in the show. Last year with Detroit, made 49 plate appearances, hit 1 home run, /178, 208, 244 to go with these 8 plate appearances in the show. In AAA this year was at 5 home runs, 5 steals, a 280, 375, 476 slash line. Reasonably low strikeout rate, below 20%, high walk rate at 12.5%, but playing at age 26 in AAA. So some good, some bad. He is min-priced, but really just another outfielder type. Pedro Paz, Victor Scott. Victor Scott's very, very fast. If he happens to get on, you can get a stolen base for a little bonus scoring. You get some correlated scoring if somebody happens to drive him in, but a lower end guy from way down the lineup. And Pedro Paz doesn't really offer you all that much. Dodgers bats against Sonny Gray, just a 4.15 implied total, but it's difficult to take the Dodgers off the board really at all, even against Sonny. There are strikeouts there for sure in his talent, but they're also most of their key hitters can limit strikeouts or do damage in exchange for their strikeout downside. Like Ohtani, we don't really care, I don't think, about a 25.6% strikeout rate, given that he's one of the 3 very best players in all of baseball. 23 home runs, 11 stolen bases on the board, a 352 ISO, a 456 xWOBA is ridiculous, 21.4% barrels. Dude just mashes. Mookie, 5,200, 3,800. Maybe you're getting a couple bucks off the price there for Mookie. Hasn't hit for a lot of power, but he's doing other things. He's getting on base like crazy. 346 xWOBA is encouraging underneath the covers for the slash line to come back into form where we would normally expect him around 115 WRC plus anyway. Freddie, Teoscar, Max Muncy, double-digit barrel rates for all those guys. 46, 40, and 51.9% hard hits for those 3 hitters. Muncy really rounding into form. Since he got glasses, apparently, was the big issue. He was in the Ricky Vaughn program. He's only 4,000 still on DraftKings. He's 32 on FanDuel. He's up to 9 home runs. Remember a couple weeks ago, he had 0. People were worried. 370 xWOBA, 199 ISO. That's going to be over 200 very, very soon. Max Muncy remains an absolute masher of baseballs. Even against Sonny Gray, you can roll some Max Muncy. Where you run into the issue with Max is he's a 3 true outcomes hitter for sure. Nobody's denying that. So we get the strikeout downside, and Sonny is good at limiting walks as well. So you might take a little bit of that bonus upside away from Max, but you still do get the home run power, the ridiculous ability to drive in a ton of these superstars ahead of him in the lineup as a bonus. So at worst, it all evens out, and I still want some cheap Max Muncy, 119 WRC plus, even in spite of the early season struggles. Andy Pajes at 44.33 is a monster. 8.8% barrels this year, just 18.6% strikeouts. He's hit a dozen home runs in 242 plate appearances, carrying a 209 ISO, a 350 XWOB with 34% better than average WRC plus. It's ridiculous. It never ends with this team. Michael Conforto, also, there's things to like about Conforto this year, despite the 167, 311, 270, despite the only 3 home runs. Even you could point to the anemic 10 RBIs and 212 plate appearances. A lot of this is misfortune. The 103 ISO is kind of glaring in the face of what I'm about to say about the barrels and the hard hits over there, which are both appealing numbers. 335 XWOB is encouraging for all of this to come back up, but he is making good contact, striking out a lot, but also walking a lot. There are things to like, and if nobody else is going to go there, that is one way to maybe differentiate a Dodgers bat, maybe get cheap with a Dodgers bat. It's not easy to do that. Tommy Edman has normalized over time. He's been stuck at those 9 home runs, or maybe it was 8 and he hit one more recently, but it's been more limited than that outrageous stretch that we had with Tommy Edman, but he remains very playable. He's been an appealing utility level bat for years, so you can always work some Tommy Edman in. He's essentially what Enrique Hernandez is for this team. He's what Chris Taylor was for this team before they DFA'd him. Dalton Rushing at 33-26, premium prospect at catcher. He's got 1 home run in his 31 plate appearances so far and making excellent contact in line with expectations for what this team is. 33 is not a bad price to find a catcher just in this lineup, regardless of what name's on his jersey. But that kid has pedigree. Love the upside there. It's just a really challenging pitcher to throw a rookie hitter against. He's also striking out 51.6% of his 31 plate appearances. I'm going to give it a Sonny. I don't really want him, but I'll put him on the top of this board. Sonny Gray, Cardinals bats, Dodgers bats. No Robleski, thank you. Captain America says Terry's a Mets fan. He rocks the Yanks gear for clout. Love it. I am a Mets supporting Yankees fan. I have no issue with the Mets. They're playing the Yankees. I'm rooting for the Yankees. If I'm talking to an obnoxious Mets fan, I might get a little bit more anti-Mets. But over the years, I've always enjoyed the Mets. I've always supported them. I've gone to a million Mets games. I've rooted for them in the playoffs, not playing the Yankees. It's a New York team. I got no issues with the Mets. They have a lot of issues with Yankees fans, which I totally get. A little bit of little brother type syndrome there. But it's just so easy to pick on them if they try too. I mean, they don't win all that frequently. Hell, their team history and their team colors are just because of the Dodgers and the Giants. They don't even have their own identity, the poor bastards. You got to be nice to Mets fans. They've had it rough. Captain America says Yankees ranked 3rd in top 5 projection teams today at 520 bias or not there in position tonight. Only thing Terry can do better is his Yankees projections. Pretty sure personal bias based in it somewhere as an amplifier. Not in the slightest, my friend. This is just their numbers, dude. This guy's mash. Kodai Senga. 9,000 at Coors Field, 10.6 at Coors Field, and projects as one of our highest end pitchers of the day. Coming in with an 11.7% swinging strike rate, 23.5% strikeouts, but he has walked 11.2. That probably doesn't come into play as much as one might think against a team carrying a 5.4% collective walk rate. Some of that is influenced by a 0 that's in there, or 2 zeros that are in there. But you can see, I mean, even with that, everybody outside of Ryan McMahon, who's striking out way too much, in the low to mid single digits as far as walks go. This is not a team we really worry about walks all that much with. So I expect Senga to be on form and nasty here. Well worth going to with all the strikeouts in this lineup. There is a little bit of power downside, but he's only allowed a 6.7% barrel so far this year. The hard hits above where we want them, but exit velo has been manageable at just 88.9. Home runs have been well in check. Last time out, against this same Colorado team in Queens, 6 1/3, 7 strikeouts, allowed a home run, 2 earned on 2 hits, walked 2, but that's a tremendous start over 6 1/3. 5 strikeouts in the 2 games prior to that one, a 7 strikeout game against Pittsburgh prior to that stretch. Started out the season a little bit lighter for strikeouts, but has kind of caught form a little bit more over the last few. Love the upside for that trend to continue, if nothing else. 2 seasons ago, when we had him for a full sample, he was a 29.1% strikeout pitcher. Did have a lot of walks. It's just kind of the nature of his stuff. But tremendous option for upside today, even at Coors Field. And 9,000, probably not fully priced for the ceiling. I feel like a lot of people are going to go to him, though. Senzatella, I want absolutely no part of. The Mets are at a 6.5 run total for a reason. He's got an 11% strikeout rate. He's basically, you could have just as good a chance of winning a game if they had a batting tee out there today for the Mets. It's about where I come down on Senzatella. I don't know why they even gave him the extra 300 on DraftKings. Just make him 4,000. It's just dumb. Don't play him. Nimmo, 47-36, 10 home runs against this pitcher. Fire away. Those are reasonable prices. Anybody that you can get in the Mets lineup, if there's any justification around, wow, that guy's not projected for a lot of ownership where I'm looking, or this guy down lineup like Jared Young at 36-28, very cheap. Any justifications you can make them and take those guys, because this is going to be a very, very popular spot, and you're going to want to differentiate at least a little bit as you build out your Met stacks. The guys up top are super obvious. No Francisco Lindor in the projected version of the lineup, but he's not going on the IL. We'll see whether we get him or not today. He broke his pinky toe. So we'll see what happens with Francisco Lindor. Obviously, it's a bit of a downgrade for their lineup, taking one of the best players in baseball out of it. Ryan Ritter is right-handed. But it wouldn't take me away from wanting to roster the Mets at all. Starlin Marte in the second spot, 4,200, 3,200. Oh, Ritter's just not on either side. Okay. I was wondering why that didn't fill in down here. If they're not on the salary tab and then moved over to the hitter tab, right? The salary is here, and then the hitters are over here, and then it draws that handedness from over there. If it doesn't find it over here, it's kind of a mess. But either way, Ryan Ritter's not on your salary sheet today, so it doesn't matter. Marte, totally playable, especially at Coors Field. 4 home runs, 4 steals, putting the ball in play from time to time, getting on base at a 350 clip, a 352 xWOBA to tell us that there's more encouraging days to come from Starling Marte, and he's still creating runs 18% better than average. He's a critical piece of what they do. Juan Soto, 6,000, 4,300. I think you can play him against Antonio Senzatella. Pete Alonso, mashing baseballs, 20.6% barrels, 55% hard hits, 15 home runs, slashing 298, 394, 579. I didn't see that part coming. The power is very real and always has been. I did not see him with the overall slash line like this. 440 xWOBA to support the upside, 172 WRC plus. He's been very good, and he's been very real this year, and nobody wanted him. DraftKings didn't even really price him and Soto up for the fact that they're playing in Coors Field against Senzatella. FanDuel did a little bit. Nobody else, but those two at least. Jeff McNeil, 46. Brett Beatty, 44. I feel like those two got priced up a little bit for being at Coors Field. Maybe they're just trying to do it with the ancillary players, which is a weird approach. McNeil, I don't love at those prices. 237, 342, 441. But if we're just looking to buy contact, just by bat on ball, the opportunity to get to first base, provide some correlated scoring, that's what Jeff McNeil does well. He does have a 204 ISO, which is interesting. 3.5% barrels, 30.6% hard hits. I imagine he's just doubled a few times in 111 plate appearances to create that. Brett Beatty, a little bit more realistic for power upside from the left side of the plate. 12.8% barrels, 43.6% hard hits this year. 6 home runs and 141 chances, a 198 ISO, 330 xWOBA for both those players. Ronnie Mauricio, another high-end kid for this team. 3,000 at third base, totally reasonable on DraftKings. 2,700, more to the point, at second base on FanDuel is very, very appealing. Mauricio, in 2023, made 108 plate appearances with the big club, slash 248, 296, 347. Wasn't that good. 0.099 ISO, struck out nearly 29% of the time. 2 homers and 7 steals was at least something to point to in that stretch. That same season in AAA, had 23 home runs, 24 stolen bases, a tremendous slash line, a 214 ISO, a 106 WRC plus. And then this year in a handful of minor league plate appearances, 73 to be exact. He missed all of 2024. 73 plate appearances, 3 home runs, 6 steals, 323, 384, 508. Got the call to the big club. definitely interested. If people aren't going there, that's a mistake by them. Take advantage. He's very cheap for his talent, and he fills premium spots. Jared Young at 36-28 can make quality contact, which is really all we're looking for here at Coors Field against this pitcher. Just take the cheap price, take the left-handed bat there and run with it. He's got a home run on the board in 20 plate appearances, 9.1% barrels so far. Francisco Alvarez, another player, just all the power in the world in a realistic sense. 7.8% barrels, 46.9% hard hits in just 105 plate appearances this year, over which he's been bad. But we saw the power, 23, I want to say, home runs 2 years ago. 4,000, very affordable option down the bottom of the lineup. A few contrarian shares of Rockies when they're at home is always at least in the mix. They are at above a 4-run total. If they're just keeping the bat on their shoulder today for reasons that aren't usually in play with them, then maybe they find a few walks and maybe somebody's able to exploit that. They did hit a homer against Senga in the game in Queens. It's not out of the realm of possibility that they put 4 runs on him and they don't have a great day and he doesn't have a great day. That's the most likely outcome if you're thinking that they connect at all. I would say it's most likely good Senga start, then like a light 4-run Rockies day, and Senga isn't where you need him. And then, further down that list is the Rockies upside day. But if you're going this route, I still would prioritize Jordan Beck, Hunter Goodman, Brenton Doyle, and then work around the edges of that. Tyler Estrada is a mix and match option right now. 20 plate appearances at 278, 300, 389 does obviously benefit from Coors. Last year was a lost season. 217, 247, 343, 9 homers, 2 steals. Year before, 14 homers, 23 steals. Year before that, 14 and 21 with respectable enough slash lines. That guy's just been gone for the better part of the last year and change. So I don't love it, but he is very cheap. And again, he does also get to play at Coors Field today, as do all these Rockies. If you're just buying blind, cheap bats at Coors Field, they're the definitely lower owned of these two teams. Goodman, 4,300 is pretty cheap for a catcher with 11.7% barrels and above a 50% hard hit rate. 10 home runs, 281, 328, 491, a 210 ISO. There's a lot of upside there. McMahon is just himself year in, year out. You can get a little bit of pop. He does have a very good barrel and hard hit rate pretty much every year. Strikes out way too much, but draws his walks. He's not good enough in the full sense to be a 3 true outcomes hitter because he doesn't truly hit for enough power. He'll hit the occasional home run. He's got 6 on the board this year in 245 chances. Last year he hit 20 in 645. That's okay. Doesn't make you a tremendous power hitter. A lot of guys hit 20 home runs. Doyle, 13.1% barrels, 44% hard hits. Very appealing in those departments. Not finding great results, though. 204, 262, 327. Hitter that we know can be better and provide home runs and stolen bases. So a category filler for DFS, if nothing else. If Ritter gets added to the slate, I doubt they go out of their way to add Ryan Ritter. But if he does, he's 24 and change. He has hit 16 home runs in AAA so far this year. He had 24 in AAA back in 2023. Just 7 last year in AA. It was AA. Wait, excuse me. That was A ball in 2023. 18 of those 24 home runs in A ball, and then another 6 in high A. It was the minor league summary line that I caught. So maybe some primo bat on ball, maybe a little bit of a power threat, but that's also a PCL team, so take it with a grain of salt. Kistin Hura back in the show, 222, 300, 333. We'll see how long he lasts this time. Has never really fulfilled expectations in the long term, but he's very cheap for what the pedigree once was. He fills second base. If I'm going to Rockies, I'll probably include him. Mickey Moniak, another guy, former first overall pick, slashing just 212, 262, 385. 5 home runs, respectable enough in terms of the premium contact, and that's been sustained at least in the barrel rate over time. Was not completely lost last year with 14 home runs and 8 steals. The year before that, in a half a season, he was downright good. 283, 07, 495 is not bad. A 215 ISO, 14 homers and 6 steals, a 114 WRC plus. That was a really good stretch. Hasn't been that guy since, but there's still talent in there. And if you're just buying it for the cheap price at the bottom of the lineup, then so be it. Lefty bat, at least. Tyler Freeman, mix and match quality. Mets bats, Kodai Senga. Rockies bats, don't play Antonio Sensatello. It's rare for me to say there's literally no reason to play the pitcher. Normally, you can at least make an argument for DFS purposes, for game theory and so on. Don't play Antonio Senzatella. He is unplayably bad. Cue the complete game shutout, of course. Bryce Miller, been problematic for those of us who drafted him highly in our Dynasty League. Gave me a great year last year when he pitched to a 24.3% strikeout against just 6.4% walks. A great mark by Stuff Plus, 2.94 ERA. 3.85 xFIP was a little bit glaring in there, but it came with a sub-1 whip, and he got through it and never really faced the challenge of the downside. This year, it's been more of that downside. 5.36 ERA with a 4.78 xFIP underneath it, a 1.53 whip, 19.2% strikeouts, obviously off the mark, 11.4% walks is more problematic, I think. That was demonstrative, I think, of the elbow of, I want to say elbow, it might have been shoulder, I forget which, of the pain that he was experiencing early in the season. Went on the IL for a couple of weeks, came back allegedly pain-free. We'll see how that holds. I didn't see the first start back, but word was that the stuff was measuring out better, looked better. Just went 4 innings, faced 19 hitters, did allow 3 earned runs, a home run, struck out just 2 and walked 1. So I kind of question how much upside we really have, but it's difficult to not let him project effectively for a 5 and change inning start here. And the Angels have plenty of strikeout. So he benefits in the projection from that. What I would say is it's like whoever it was yesterday where I was kind of saying, I think this is our ceiling probably. It's probably similar to that. I don't know how much ceiling beyond this he has because I don't know if we're getting more than 5 innings. But there are plenty of strikeouts on deck. There's also a pretty major threat of power from guys like Mike Trout, Taylor Ward, Jorge Soler, Logan O'Hoppe. But Miller, when he's on form, for one, wouldn't be priced like this against this team. So a lot of the concerns, even the short start on FanDuel at 77, is kind of baked into the pricing. So I don't think he's off the board, even in a 5-inning consideration. Kyle Hendricks, I don't really see all that many reasons to go play. 5.34 ERA, a 4.99 xFIP. You could make an actual argument for Hendricks, though. Converse from Senzatella. There are plenty of strikeouts to go find in the Mariners lineup, but he's not a strikeout pitcher, obviously. You're just looking to buy Mariners bats with that 5-run total against all the contact that Hendo's likely to allow. You also have 3 guys above the magic number for home run quality. You've got Jorge Polanco not far off the mark. It's a very usable Mariners team, and you don't want Kyle Hendricks because he doesn't really come with much ceiling. Maybe he gets some innings pitched. If he happens to put up 7 clean innings, does he come up with a reasonable DFS score? Maybe. But that's a really thin needle to thread, even at 5,500. Mariners bats with J.P. Crawford at the top, 34-28 for a guy getting on like he does, nearly a 400 on base, 363 xWOBA under the covers, 6.9% barrels with 33.3% hard hits, but those aren't really attributes we're looking for from him. 2 years ago when he was excellent, he was below those marks, striking out sub 20, walking in a 15.4% clip, looks just like that guy, getting on base more frequently than that version of him did. And he's hit 5 home runs, not nothing in the home run department. Could see more power as the season goes on. Creating runs 40% better than average. I don't really understand why he's as cheap as he is against Kyle Hendricks at the top of this lineup. It's a little baffling. Polanco had a great start. 10 home runs, down already to 253, 300, 487. The power's maintained, the ISO's maintained. xWOBA hopefully suggestive of a swing back up the other way. But we've hit the dip a little bit with Polanco. 11.7% barrels, 48.9% hard hits in the long term. He's only 3,800, fills third base on DraftKings, fills second base for 28 on FanDuel. Given the career history and the start to the season that we saw, there's plenty of reason to continue playing him. It's also low strikeout, low walk to throw at all the contact that Hendo's going to allow. Julio Rodriguez at 5,000, 3,400, 10 home runs, 9 steals, coming around slowly in the slash line, 244, 314, 407. It'll be fully normalized by the end of the season. You just want to be a part of it when he's facing a pitcher like this. Cal Raleigh, one of the best home run hitters in baseball, 24 on the season in 265 plate appearances for the catcher, 23.5% barrels. You just play Cal Raleigh when you go to this team. He's fully priced like a star, but he's also deserving. He is a star right now. 405 xWOBA. It's all very real. He's tremendous. Randy Arozarena, a little bit cheap at 44.32. Creating runs 11% better than average. I don't really care that he's only hitting 213. He's getting on base at a good clip. Has a little bit of power. 11.4% barrels and 50% hard hits. Results be damned. That's good contact. 7 home runs, 9 steals. Rowdy Tellez hit us our home run the other day. I believe he hasn't had one since, so we'll call that his 9th. 206, 257, 426, but a 220 ISO, 9 home runs, 16.3% barrels from the left side against a pitcher that's nothing but soft-tossing right-handed contact. It's a good day to be rostering Rowdy Tellez if you're going to the Mariners. I would be interested in his home run upside here for 2,900, 2,400. It's a priority bat in this stack if I'm going to this team. Leody Taveras, Cole Young for the dead Min, and Ben Williamson down lineup. Taveras has been a reasonable mix and match quality player with some counting stat upside for the last couple of seasons. Cole Young has decent abilities, but has not really delivered in 16 plate appearances. I think we give him a little bit more of a chance to get his feet on the ground. Was finding success in the minors, and he's dead mid price. So he's at worst playable to average down pricing, and he's a second baseman. And then Williamson, mostly here to play defense. Angels bats against Miller. If we're expecting a short start, you get into a pretty good Mariners pen. It's not great for the upside just based on the short start. But if you get the bad form that Miller's been in, then there's upside galore, especially if he's walking the world again. Get a couple of these guys on base ahead of one of these big thumpers that they've got in the lineup from here down, and you're off and running. Zach Neto hits for a ton of power himself. 10 home runs in the leadoff spot, 276, 314, 523. He's created runs tremendously at a 132 WRC plus. Justifiably expensive. I don't know if I would have him above Mike Trout's price, even with Trout hitting like he is. I think I want Trout as the more expensive, but easy to pay those prices for Neto. 34.29 for Shanuel. Just get him on base ahead of Trout, ahead of Taylor Ward. That's what he's here to do. He's very cheap for that role. It's correlated scoring based, but it's very playable. 118 WRC plus this year. Trout has a 400 xWOBA. He has 10 home runs and 145 chances, a 268 ISO, created runs 20% better than average. Don't worry that he's hitting 228. That's for the baseball card people to worry about. Taylor Ward, 15.4% barrels, an exact match for Mike Trout so far. 17 home runs for Ward in more plate appearances. I suspect Trout catches him, if not surpasses him, if they end up having the same amount of plate appearances the rest of the way. Either way, though, Taylor Ward, cheap on DraftKings at 4,300 for his very, very real power upside. On FanDuel, he's the same price as Trout. Give me Trout every time if I have to decide between, but I don't. I'll just play them side by side most of the time. Jorge Soler is a nice offset further from Taylor Ward in terms of the price on both sides. 35, 3,000. He's been bad this year. No denying it. 216, 292, 380, and 89 WRC plus, just a 163 ISO. Only 8 home runs and 234 chances, but an any given slate monster ceiling. Definitely a good candidate to still see a turnaround this year. Like the upside for Soler at these prices on any given slate. Logan O'Hoppe at 42 is cheap for a catcher with an 18.3% barrel. Monster success so far. 14 home runs and 197 chances. Why would you not want Logan O'Hoppe in your lineup? Luis Renifo, mix and match. Chris Taylor, worse than that quality. And then Joey Adell. 9 home runs on the board this year. I told you, he's going to hit home runs. Had a very successful season last year. Is on pace to surpass the home run total. 206 ISO, a 352 xWOBA is really encouraging under the covers. 12.4% barrels, 44.6% hard hits. He's even got strikeouts down at a manageable 24.3, 6.1% walks. Joe Adell is not bad. He's very cheap at 33.29. You're hunting for the bad version of Bryce Miller here if you're rostering Angels. I don't love it, but a 4.56 implied total is very, very doable. Mariners bats. Going to go with some faith and say Bryce Miller, especially because he's so cheap. And then the Angels bats. We really got to find the strikeout upside with Miller if we're going to succeed, and he's probably only getting 5 innings, so take that into account. No Kyle Hendricks. Last 2, Orioles and the A's, and then the Braves and the Giants. Important games all. 5+ implied totals on both sides of this one as well. Dean Kramer against JP Sears. So as I mentioned at the top of the show, not to soak too much time into 2 pitchers with 17% strikeout rates over their dozen starts apiece. Both these guys are pitching to serviceable enough strikeout to walk ratios. Like, these aren't good strikeout rates, but those aren't bad walk rates. 5.05 ERA, but a 4.61 xFIP, a little bit better under the covers. 4.70 ERA, a 4.31 xFIP, a little bit better under the covers. It wouldn't surprise anybody, I don't think, to see either one of these guys succeed against either one of these offenses in a vacuum, at a neutral park, in Baltimore even, let's say. This ballpark is really working against both these pitchers, most notably in those Vegas totals, and just in terms of the expectation, because if you provide this much available contact and the low walk rates factor into that, then this ballpark is probably going to win out for benefiting that just volume of contact. Maybe it doesn't become the 12-10 ball game that creates a just slate breaker. It looks like it's got that trajectory, but maybe it doesn't go that route. But you're probably still likely looking at a solid handful of runs on either side. So both pitchers are really only DraftKings options. They're just in that cheapo bargain bin set. For as much as you can play Dean Kramer at 68, you can play JP Sears at 63. Have very low expectations when you do that. Don't do it in your one precious lineup. If you have a couple throwaway lineups across 150 and you're just looking for a little bit of scrappy tournament upside, maybe you can get it there by good bats with your discount. Orioles bats. Jackson Holiday holding down a 9.7% barrel, 46.8% hard hit. Nobody tell Mike Brown that he's actually good now, because Mike Brown still got him in the minors in our Dynasty League. That's in spite of 7 home runs and 5 steals, 263, 14, 422, and coming into his own, a 111 WRC plus. Kid's been good, and he's still very affordable. Considering that we're getting him in this lineup in this ballpark, that's a really cheap price at $4,290. Adley at 39.28, just 7 home runs, a really disappointing slash line, 150 ISO, a 369 xWOBA, 9.9% barrels. There's a lot to like from a guy with a 16.8% strikeout rate, 11.1% walks. You're going to get some contact out of Adley here, or you got at least a shot of squeezing out a walk. I like the upside for correlated scoring. I also like the upside in this ballpark for that power to actually play. You have 8 home runs on the board for Gunnar Henderson. He's carrying a 9.1% barrel, 55.2% hard hits. At 12.25, Gunnar is our home run pick of the day. Given that we have that Coors Field game on the board, I didn't feel too bad about taking somebody from this one. I like the upside for Gunnar to come through here. Big lefty bat, even against another lefty. Not going to sweat it. Ramon Urias, 3,200, cheap. Definitely some right-handed pop in that bat. He's only hit 2 home runs this year, just a .082 ISO, but we've seen him drive the ball more effectively over time. He's typically better when he's hiding down here and nobody's going to him. If he's hitting in the cleanup role, is it completely appealing? No, it's less appealing, but we'll see. Definitely playable. Kobe Mayo is super cheap at 2,100, 2,300. He's had a pretty bad 27 plate appearances this year, had a pretty bad 46 plate appearances last year. But we do have We have 195 AAA plate appearances this year as a 23-year-old, 8 home runs on the board, an 11.8% walk rate, a 226 ISO to go with some of the bad, which is a 226, 318, 452 slash line. But it evens out around the power, the 104 WRC plus. Last year, he hit 25 home runs in 406 minor league plate appearances, 390 of which and 22 home runs of which came at AAA. And he slashed 287, 364, 562 with a 275 ISO. So kind of alleviates any of the concerns about the smaller sample low slash line this year. Some major upside from Kobe Mayo, who potentially slips under the radar a little bit at 21. First base, third base, not problematic given the quality of what the talent actually is. 23 at third base on FanDuel, sure, why not? 7.93 in your home run model today. 8.18 for Colton Cowser with all the left-handed power in the world. He's got a 12.5% barrel rate in his 27 plate appearances. He's hit 2 home runs already since returning to the lineup. Last year, 24 homers in 561 plate appearances. Had a 204 ISO. Creator runs 20% better than average. Colton Cowser pretty much arrived in full last year. Dylan Carlson, mix and match level talent, 2 home runs, a stolen base, and 65 chances. Jorge Mateo, all the speed in the world. Doesn't really get on base reliably. 242 on base this year over 62 plate appearances. But despite that low on base and that low sample of plate appearances, has somehow stolen 14 bases. That's notable. Last year, he stole 13 in 208 plate appearances. Year before, 32 in 350. He can also drive the ball. He's more of a line drive hitter. Every now and then you get sneaky power. He's another guy that never really became what he was supposed to. That's where you get bogged down with prospect buzz if you're a fantasy player and everything. That name, once upon a time, was supposed to be a lot better than he's ever been. But the speed always did come through. When he gets to first base, he's dangerous. And then we have Jordan Adams at the bottom of the lineup. Come on. Adams, in 136 AAA plate appearances so far this year, 3 homers, 5 steals, 212, 316, 345. Nothing to write home about. Last year, 10 homers, 28 steals in 549 AAA plate appearances with the Angels. Mediocre. 261, 333, 386. It's like low mid-grade pop, but does have speed. Stole 44 bases in 2023 with 15 home runs in the Angels system. Most of that high A, double A split. Maybe another little sneaky option down lineup if he's in the lineup at all. Dead min price on DK, 22 on FanDuel. Could give you a little bit. And again, the ballpark just plays up. The Athletics, Lawrence Butler at the top of the lineup, 9 homers, 10 steals. He's been pretty good. Started out a little bit light this season, but has really come on. 10.5% barrels, 48% hard hits overall. 267, 338, 467, a 200 ISO. Creating runs 29% better than average. Jacob Wilson slashing 363, 402, 523. What a tremendous 255 plate appearances this guy's had. Striking out 6.3% of the time, walking at just a 5.5 clip. So everything is in play. Doesn't really barrel that many balls, but has hit 8 home runs. So it's not off the table for him. Love the upside as a table setter ahead of their true stretch of power. Brent Rooker, 13 home runs on the board so far this year. Strikeouts down yet again. He's down to 22.4%. I never thought there was a universe where Brent Rooker was going to be at 22% strikeouts. 32% 2 years ago, improved at 28.8 last year while taking a lot of whiff out of his game on individual pitches, and has that down at 22.4 this year. 272, 342, 480, creating runs 34% better than average. Just a tremendous, tremendous bat and a smart hitter. 16.3% barrels, 50% hard hits out of Soderstrom, who now has 14 homers. Power's come back a little bit in the last few games, 4,000, 3,100. Love the upside in the ballpark, cheap enough. Those are discounted prices given the start that he's had. 228 ISO, 374 XWO, but to tell you that it's all very, very real. Let me swap out Max Muncy's. We're back to this crazy nonsense. I thought I had that taken care of. I'll get that fixed in the projections as well. So annoying. I know I took care of it on the salary sheet, so it's just in the lineups. This Max Muncy is a $2,400 second baseman on DraftKings and a $2,100 shortstop second baseman on the FanDuel slate. I guess they didn't give him his change in the stats board either. I hate the fact that they've done nothing about this dual naming nonsense. Just give one of these guys a middle initial. 195, 225, 325 with a trip to the minors, 80 plate appearances, 2 home runs on the board. He's kind of a nothing bat right now. Mix and match piece if he's in the lineup at all. JJ Bleday, also mix and match. Sub Mendoza, 6 home runs. Lefty stick with a little bit of pop from time to time. Has been better for medium grade power over the last 2 years than he has been so far this year, but he's all right. Luis Urias does have a little bit more pop than that, 11.7% barrels last year. He's hit 6 home runs so far this year in 176 chances. Always playable, second base eligible at 3,300, 2,700 on FanDuel. Mix and match caliber player in the long term then, though. Willie McIver and Denzel Clark down lineup in this projected version. Clark, we've talked about a little bit of quality there. in terms of just very, very cheap. MacGyver, 15 home runs in 369 plate appearances with Colorado's AAA team as a 27-year-old last year. So a little bit of PCL, a little bit of advanced age. Wouldn't really get too excited about the opportunity, but he's very cheap at catcher. So if he's in the lineup, if he's down here, fire away. You can get there. What is going on in my pocket? Somebody's been texting me. Not as many texts as I thought, but somebody's been texting me. Anyway, this one, slight lean with the Vegas side going O's bats, A's bats. The power upside probably does lie in truth with the A's bats, but it's very real on both sides, and the home run pick of the day comes with Gunnar Henderson. So offense on both, and then if you're rostering pitching, it's just on the DK board. I don't think there's any reason in the world to go to 85 for Dean Kramer here, and 76 for JP Sears feels a little bit difficult to justify as well. Again, though, would not shock if either one of these guys had a reasonable start. I'm not even calling for an upside day, just saying like a reasonable start. I missed. Last game up, Spencer Schwellenbach, Hayden Birdsong. If you were here going on 3 hours ago, I talked about liking both these pitchers at the end of the night. Schwelly, reasonably priced for facing a team with plenty of strikeout in a game with a 7.5 run total in a pitcher-friendly park. He's pitched to a 23.7% strikeout rate, just 4% walks this year, 13.2% swinging strikes, 3.13 ERA, but a 2.93 xFIP. It's been tremendous. He is very, very good. All of this is extremely real. Just get used to Spencer Schwellenbach putting up numbers. He is this good. So those are fair prices. If I can get him as a late night hammer, I love it. I'll take the upside. Hayden Birdsong, though, maybe we get a little bit sneaky and get to Hayden Birdsong. 86, 8,000, especially with the way that some of those other pitchers were playing up from similar pricing, the Will Warrens, the Ben Browns of the world. I feel like Birdsong's going a little bit underappreciated in that exact same conversation because he's got the same level of talent. He's got essentially the same level of experience. 2.37 ERA at 3.74 xFIP in a hybrid role, 3 starts, multi-inning relief work this year. It's pitched to a 24.8% strikeout, a 7.5% walk, 12.6% swinging. Last year in 16 starts, 72 innings, he pitched to a 27.9% major league strikeout rate. He also walked 13% of major league hitters, almost 14. So take the good with the bad. 4.75 ERA, but a 4.21 xFIP, 11.5% swinging. Has made improvements on those numbers so far this year. Had a 111 mark by Stuff Plus last year. That's come down to 104 so far this year, but we're still well above the average. He has very good stuff. Hayden Birdsong is a very good young pitcher. At 86, he's all right on the DraftKings board. At 8,000 on FanDuel, I think is where maybe he gets interesting. Just with the way that plays from here versus Will Warren at 81, where we know he's going to be more popular. Ben Brown, where we know he's going to be more popular. I might take that shot. Atlanta's just as high danger a lineup, I think, as either of those other teams. Boston in Yankee Stadium or Detroit. Tons of power, arguably more dangerous lineup. But this ballpark will help with some of that, and he's just as good as those guys. 86 doesn't quite play the same way, though, against 8,000, and especially not against 7,000. So it's a little bit just offset price-wise if you're looking at the DK board. You probably do get even lighter ownership on Birdsong on the DK slate, though. So you would get that benefit, but it's a little bit more difficult on DK. With that in mind, I'm not in love with the bats from this game. I really don't love I don't love the Giants more than I don't love the Braves. I like the Giants a little bit less than the Braves here. I do like this Giants lineup in a vacuum, but not against Schwelly, who doesn't really allow all that much power, keeps the ball to just an 8.1 degree average launch, so he has an impact on the home run numbers for a team that I'm typically looking to get my homer out of. You know, Elliot Ramos, good home run bat. Matt Chapman, good home run bat. Willie Adames, at least in theory, a good home run bat. But if we're taking that away, it really lessens the appeal of going to the Giants. Not looking for them for sequencing all that often. So really low end at a 3.57 implied total in their pitcher's park. Just to do it real quick, though, Daniel Johnson, mix and match caliber outfielder, but really just another outfielder outside of that cheap $2,200 price. Elliot Ramos is interesting at 43.34, but again, especially more so at the DK price. A lot of barrels, a lot of hard hits, a lot of home runs last year, having a very good start to his year this year, but just a challenging matchup for him to deliver on what his talent is. Jung-Hoo Lee could easily succeed against Schwelly here. A lot of balls in play. A lot of high quality on base opportunities. 326 on base at 334 xWOB underlying. His creator runs 15% better than average. Just doesn't crush the ball. But if we're looking for balls in play, 11.9% strikeouts, 6.5% walks. One of our more likely candidates to at least put a few base hits on Schwellenbach. Chapman can hit a home run against anybody. 10.8% barrels, 51% hard hits. One of the best swings in baseball. 24.2% strikeouts. 15% walks. It's a lot of good with Chapman. 358 on base, a 373 xWOBA. Creating runs 28% better than average. Willie's been problematic, and it hasn't really changed. He is still making okay contact when he's connecting with the ball, but even those numbers are down. 26.1% Ks. He's drawn some walks. He's just getting on at a 288 clip, though. 198 average. Ouch. 198, 288, 312. Is not the player that the San Francisco Giants thought they were getting for Willy Adames. 296 xWOBA, but difficult to justify the upside. You have to go back to previous seasons to find the upside with Willie. I think it's still worth doing if you're going to the Giants. It just doesn't feel like the day to do it. Dom Smith, no thanks. Dadara Encarnacion, no thanks. I mean, decent bat on ball skills out of either of those guys from time to time. Encarnacion for a little bit more power, but not against this pitcher. It gets difficult to see down there. Patty Bailey, Tyler Fitz. Between those two, it's probably Tyler Fitz and just grab some hit tool, some on base upside. He does have a little mid-board power, a little bit of speed, but we're fishing at best if we're going to the bottom of the Giants lineup against this pitcher at the end of the night. On the Braves side, if I got over the top to Hayden Birdsong shares, I probably would grab a few hedge stacks of Braves at least, just to have it. You do have four guys at the top of the lineup that are at or above the magic number, 10-1-3, 10-04, 9-9-8, 9-7-3 for Acuna, Riley, Olsen, and Ozuna. So that's still a tremendous stretch of hitters. You don't really want to discount those guys too much. Down lineup, you have a struggling Ozzy Albies, a just never actually good Alex Verdugo, Sean Murphy with tremendous power from the catcher spot, and then Nick Allen, who is at best a mix and match infielder and really not even worth that, and a struggling Michael Harris. You can reconfigure these Braves any which way that you want, as long as you're getting, I want to say 3, but you could probably get away with 2 of the top 4. But really you want 3, or you just want on FanDuel all 4 of those guys. On DraftKings, again, 3 of those 4 with 2 of these other guys. The good news is the Albies of the world, despite his struggles, there are still high-end games to be had there. Sean Murphy mashes baseballs. He's not a good option for average, for correlated scoring necessarily, but he crushes the ball when he connects with it. 14.1% barrels, 44.9% hard hits. If you get Drake Baldwin, that's also great. He's been crushing the ball too from the left side. Michael Harris, I'm still a believer. 40+% hard hits at least. I think that was sub 40 a couple days ago. The barrels are still down at just 5.8%, but at least it's not striking out. It's not like there's been a notable change in this department. Just seeing some bad results. 232, 259, 330, almost inexplicable. But a good player. There should be an ongoing rising tide effect from the return of this guy. Ronnie Acuna, 51 plate appearances. Did you miss me? 333, 412, 644, 4 home runs already, a 311 ISO, 20.7% barrels, 79.3% hard hits in that sample. It's like he didn't miss a beat. It's like he was never gone. 5,900, 3,900, price like he was never gone too. Riley's a little bit cheap. Olsen is arguably a couple bucks cheap. Same thing on FanDuel. And Ozuna remains free for his quality on DraftKings. Putting that player at 4,000 is just dumb. I mean, Matt Chapman is way too cheap at 4,000 as well, but Ozuna does things on top of what Chapman does that should put him at another level. Just take a random ass team like. Right. In a world where George Springer is at 46, why is Marcell Ozuna at 4,000? That was a reasonably good example to land on. Springer's been barreling the ball. He's been hitting it very hard. We talked about him just a little while ago. But Ozuna does those things too and has not slipped over the last few years while being completely tremendous. 304, 381, and 552 last year. Yes, we've lost a slight amount of results-based power, but it's not because he's not making good contact anymore. 10 home runs, a 183 ISO. He's getting on at a 413 clip. He's got a 405 xWOBA that sits second only to Acuna's small sample number. He's created runs 47% better than average to lead this team yet again. Why is Marcell Ozuna so cheap? It doesn't make sense. If you're playing Braves, again, you want 3 of those top 4. That's a 49 for just in the top 4. It's under 5,000 a piece to get Acuna, Riley, Olsen, and Ozuna. Yes, it's a pitcher park. Yes, it's a pitcher that I like quite a bit on the other side who could exploit some of their high strikeout rates. But he's also still technically by start count, he's a first-year pitcher. So there is still lingering upside on the Braves. 4.01 implied total, though. Schwellenbach, Birdsong, Braves bats. Those two things are very close. Giants bats. I do think Birdie on FanDuel at that 8,000. Interesting enough. With that in mind, you guys, 5:34, 3-hour show. Godfather's been on a lot on Showtime. You could have watched that in these 3 hours. Cubs, when my phone was going nuts, Cubs said, everybody make a guess what's going on in Terry's pocket. When I said what's going on in my pocket. Yeah, wrong answers only. Most creative gets projections for less than $1 a day. Everybody gets projections for under $1 a day at rotoscouts. Check it out, guys. rotoscouts.com. You get access to every single one of these baseball projections. You don't get like the lovely little dashboard and all the stats here. That would be a giant pain in the ass to provide. But you get a projection for every player. You get my custom home run number for every player. You get my top stacks ranking tool, the power index tool. You get a home run pick from every single team that's on the board, individual home run pick plus a home run pick of the day. You get access to the basketball projections, the hockey projections all the way through the finals. Senzatella scratched. Oh no. Our favorite pitcher. It is now Ryan Rollison. I know nothing about Ryan Rollison. What a great way to round out the show. Make me spend 10 minutes looking up an anonymous pitcher from the Rockies. Ryan Rollison, rookie this year. Come on. I will fully admit that I do not have a long list of Rockies relievers or prospect pitchers in my head. He's thrown 10 innings in 7 relief appearances in the show this year. Multi-inning appearances, but no more than 2 innings in any spot. So I would assume opener. There's no reason in the world to play this pitcher. I'm just kind of talking about it to talk about it and to just talk about how the Mets are still going to be extremely high end. So you're going to get this guy for 2 innings, and then you're going to get the bullpen. He's a lefty. It's going to be a low impact change. I wouldn't expect anything overly different from the Mets for that. They're not going to sweat that. Mets still have as much upside as they did. I wouldn't say more upside because they were facing literally like the worst pitcher in the league previous to that, but maintain the same upside at worst. There is weather, to answer whoever asked that. There's weather in Coors Field. That's something to keep an eye on. There's weather in apparently the New York area, though it still looks relatively nice out. Maybe it's gotten a little bit more overcast over the last 2 hours. Little bit of weather in Texas, Washington. That game's not on this slate, is it? I forget which games we've talked about at this point. That's in the 6:45 window, so we don't worry about that. Roth put them out of order. Thank you, buddy. Cincinnati's the ugliest one. He's got that one orange. That's the one I'd be extremely concerned about. And we like bats on both sides of that game. St. Louis for the Dodgers. St. Louis has passing showers. He seems fine with that game. He also seems fine with Colorado while putting them both at yellow. And then you do have wind blowing out for the game in Sacramento, the Baltimore Athletics game. And you technically have wind blowing out in San Francisco as well. But as Roth mentions, this ballpark just cuts that basically out of the equation, just the way this park is designed, and just always plays like a pitcher's park. So still love the arms here. That said, these Braves at the top end can hit home runs against anybody. Let me round the show out with one last look at the pitching board. So again, deep enough pitching slate. You've got a realistic cut line, probably in like this territory, even though I don't really like Lodolo. But I like Hayden Birdsong. I think you could use, in a misguided way, Sonny Gray at a high price against the Dodgers. It's just they should have given you some kind of a discount. He doesn't project as well as he would against 25 of the other teams in the league when he faces the Dodgers. Bailey Ober, low strikeout opponent, but is cheap enough at 77. Hasn't really found his case, but loosely, marginally playable at probably low ownership. Willie Warren, high danger spot against the Red Sox for sure in Yankee Stadium, especially the way that their positive attributes connect with his negative attributes, but a high strikeout kid with a reasonably affordable price tag. Bryce Miller, likely limited to 5 innings, but so many strikeouts in that Angels lineup that it still puts him in this territory. That's your projection and probably also right about your ceiling. So be aware of that with Miller. And there's been some downside with Miller this year, despite him being overall spectacular. Ben Brown, really interesting against the Tigers. Another high danger spot for a high strikeout kid. 7,000 on DraftKings takes care of any concerns I have about the downside of Ben Brown. On FanDuel, it's a little bit more dicey because I have to consider my SP1 over there, obviously. Seth Lugo, imminently playable at 89, 88 against the White Sox. Easy to go to. Maybe loses a little bit of ownership to some of the Ben Browns, Will Warrens of the world because it's just, buzzy and fun to play those guys rather than the inherent safety of going to a Seth Lugo against the White Sox. Top 3 guys, easy to go to. Schwelly, absolutely love at the offset price on either site. You get a discount on Kodai Senga if you want to roll those dice at Coors Field. I love that as an option. Should find plenty of strikeouts, no real threat from the Rockies. And then Tarek Skubal at the top of the board, even against the Cubs. Easy enough to go there. That said, one of the better lineups in all of baseball. Great on-base team. At those numbers, every now and again, Tarek Skubal's going to have a clunky start. For him, that might just be 3-4 runs. But at those prices, it could damage him respective to the prices that all these other guys land at. So something to keep in mind there as you're creating your distributions. Downboard, I don't love Lodolo, again, going up against a very good Diamondbacks team. But if you use him, do it on DK at 81. Minor amount of upside. I think Colton Gordon is in that mix, like we talked about when we went over that game. Just for the super cheap price at 65, if you're worried about Ben Brown ownership against Detroit, maybe take a look at Colton Gordon. The strikeout is fine. Going up against the Cleveland team with enough strikeout in it, he's in no way safe, but neither is Ben Brown. So for a $500 discount and taking popularity entirely out of the equation, because nobody's doing that and everybody in the world is apparently going to Ben Brown, that's okay. Even if it fails on this side of lock, that's a perfectly reasonable decision to make. 74 on FanDuel, the same idea exists, but you have way less reason to do it because you don't need that second pitcher. So I wouldn't really consider it on FanDuel, where I'm kind of advocating for it a little bit on DraftKings. It's not if you're only planning on playing one in one lineup, play Ben Brown and just be different somewhere else. But if you're building a bunch of lineups, it's easy enough to say undercut this by a few points and push that up by a few points, and you're above the field almost automatically if you go to any Colton Gordon. And then it gets thin. It wouldn't stun me if Erod had an okay 5 innings against the Reds, but it's probably also capped around there. I don't think we get much more than 5. Wouldn't stun me if either of Kramer or Sears had an okay start. They're both all right. Neither one of those guys is terrible. Neither of those guys is Senzatella. But neither of those guys is overly good, and the ballpark's working against them, and those are 2 good lineups. Buehler against the Yanks, no thank you. Wroblewski, with all the reasons in the world to go to with everything working in Vegas against him in the way that game stacks up, I'm just not interested. I don't love that Cards lineup. It's difficult for me to completely ignore pitchers, but doesn't seem like a spot. No. Even Former, no, because he's not pitching, and no, because he's only going 3 innings. That's about it, gang. Gunnar Henderson's your home run pick of the day. All of that is available at rotoscouts. The projected lineups will be updated with the confirmed lineups in mere moments after I get off this show. I just need to take a breath, maybe take a sip of iced tea out of that cup that's been over there all show long, and then I'll get the lineups updated. You guys out there absolutely rock. Hit the like button for me if you haven't already. Subscribe to the channel if you've never done it before. It does legitimately help. It's a minor sacrifice to make. Believe me, I've subscribed to YouTube channels over the years, and I literally couldn't tell you which ones because it never impacts my life whatsoever. So if you could click, would help me, doesn't hurt you. If you go over to the website, we all benefit. You get pretty good projections for under $1 a day. Very competitive in the industry projections. The projections I've used to succeed in this industry for years now. A lot of upside here for under $1 a day because we're geared to the average player. We're here to service the people who are building a few lineups. If you build 150, great. These projections will work very well for you. They serve that purpose too. But our pricing model, our entire approach is geared to the 80-85% of the industry that's hand building a few lineups, or maybe you're using an optimizer and playing 20 maxes. We're here for you. We don't want to break your bank and ask for hundreds and hundreds of dollars a month per sport, so on and so forth. So check out rotoscouts. Give Gundacker's site a little bit of love. Give our guys over at AceMind a little bit of love as well. AceMind.io. Promo code rotoscouts all in caps should still get you 20% off your first month. If you try and it doesn't, let me know. I'll make sure that it happens for you. With that in mind, you guys, good luck out there tonight. Somebody go win something. Share the results in Discord or on Twitter at rotoscouts when you do. And we'll be back on Monday. Have a great weekend. Let's go Yankees. Yankees Sox this weekend. Going to the game tomorrow night. Projections will be live all through the weekend. Hockey projections will be up momentarily as well. Just got to finish my spot check before I upload the hockey projections for tonight. Good weekends, gang. I'll see you. I got to stop talking. Later.